That's
one
not,
to
that's,
one.
No,
One
it's
to
not.
one.
Alrighty. So I just have to open up my chat and be good to go. Alrighty. Oh, make that stop. Shit. There we go. Okay, cool. There we go, there we go.
I'm not going to talk about your relationship with your husband because if I did, I'd probably fuck him over. What the fuck? Like,
No.
I'm not offended because yes.
That's
one
not-
to
that's-
one.
No,
One
it's
to
not.
one. That
Well, I
logic
can
maps.
explain the difference.
You can try, but so my inference is, and you can explain why it's not that way. It sounds to me like if you talk to her, there's a non-zero chance that you're gonna prove that I'm like a really horrible husband. I'm like either abusive or something really fucked up is going on. That's what it sounds like to me. But go ahead, explain to me otherwise.
No, I just don't think it's. I don't think it's appropriate to have a conversation about your relationship without you there. I just think it's.
Why can't I say I don't think it's appropriate for me to say whether or not you're an abuser?
That's not the same thing at all.
You said it seems kind of abusive. So you did say it.
I said a particular behavior was.
Okay, whatever. I'm not.
You think
again,
that-
my
so I-
problem. You keep getting stuck on the
wait,
words.
isn't that
I'm
the
not.
difference?
Can I just talk for a second?
Punch?
Can I just?
What if I
please
punch
talk for a
Melina?
the
second?
Hold
whole
on.
time,
I
and I
punch
don't think
Melina.
you're listening to Destiny.
I
I'll
punch
talk for a
Melina.
second.
Wait, okay, you can
Max.
talk. I just gotta ask one question, then you can say what you want. Let's say that I punch Melina in the face on stream. She
Yeah.
comes in and she's like, "Steven, I want to go somewhere." It's like, "I'm playing League of Legends." Boom, and I punch her in the face. And somebody was like, "Max, do you think that was kind of abusive? What would your
That's not fair. He said he was playing League. It automatically makes for fair game.
response be on stream when you're asked that? You can say whatever you want.
I would say yes. That's abusive to punch your wife in the face. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what your problem is, but okay, say what you want to say. And then
Okay, if you
Kyle,
still
can
don't
go.
know what my problem is, then I can reiterate it for you. It's not what you said. It's not even your position. It's the way you are saying it. As I said, if you said, Max, I think you have a serious problem here. I'm worried about you. I think your relationship is abusive. I think bad stuff's going on, and I want to try to help you. That
I
would
don't want to help you though. That's not my.
It's because he doesn't think Destiny actually thinks that. So by him asking, he's just putting it out there to put it out there.
goal.
So it makes
I
it
know.
shitty.
I know. But do you see how you're now changing the subject? But if we go back to the subject we were just talking about, you can see
the
how.
difference is you engage.
Can you guys just shut the fuck up and stop interrupting me?
Hold
I
on.
literally can't. No, I don't. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't talk about this with. I need erudite. I need you to leave, or I need you to let me finish talking when I'm talking. I need you to stop.
So just to be clear, none of this is like on me. So I'd appreciate like this like
No,
hard
I'm
boundary to just
talking.
not
I
come
want
down
you
on
to
me.
shut the fuck up. I want you
But the
both to
problem,
shut the
Max,
fuck
is that
up.
you're talking
I
about
want you
70% of the time in any
No,
time
it's
you're in a
that's not
one-to-one.
even true.
Yes,
I want to.
yes.
Mr. Girl gets accused of talking more than anybody else, no matter how much he talks. Sometimes it's true, but no matter how much he talks.
This one-to-one dialogue you've had
Okay.
with Steven, you have unequivocally talked
I
the most.
understand. I understand. I want to finish saying what I'm saying, and then you can respond. Does that work for you?
Can you say it in 2 sentences?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
Can you try? Say it
Sure.
in 2 sentences.
I'll try. But I need you guys to both let me finish what I'm saying. Because the tag team dynamic is really fucking irritating.
I've been very, very neutral almost the whole time.
That's a lie. I was gonna say that's not true, but that's worse than not true. She's actually lying.
Said that I don't think that's true. So saying the opposite of what I said is not really an
she
argument.
would
I
say she's
understand
been
you
neutral,
don't.
right?
Nobody thinks they're tag teaming somebody. I know you don't think you're doing that. That's just what I think. Steven,
Okay,
you're
so
changing the
you're-
subject. You're changing the subject from the way you're saying something to what you're saying. I'm saying you could condemn me. Your position could be that I'm absolutely incredibly abusive, but you could still present that and talk about that in a way that is warm and non-condemning.
Yeah.
And your position can be that I'm kind of maybe abusive, and you can present that in a way that is extremely condemning. You did the second one. So when you say, oh, you want me to hide what I think, I'm not saying I want you to hide what you think or that you should. I'm saying there's the way I would talk about an abuse, you punching Melina in the face, I would certainly condemn your behavior, but I would do it in a way that didn't fuck you over.
That's the key the Switch people make. I think I understand.
And I would also like to respond to the other thing you said, is that I feel uncomfortable. It's not to protect you so much as protect me. I feel uncomfortable being in the position of talking about somebody with their partner in front of thousands of people. I'm not
Is that
even
a boundary that you have with Steven, that you don't want him to talk about your relationship when she's not there? Is that a boundary that you're asking for?
No.
So
I'm
why
not
are you
asking for a
comparing
boundary.
your interpersonal style to
He
his?
just, again, this is the tag team thing. Steven said, wait.
No, I'm asking you
Yes, no, I want to explain why I said that, because now you're asking me why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Steven said that if he applies the same logic that I used with the kid gloves thing, then it implies it's a horrible thing for me to say, I don't want to talk about you with your wife behind your back. And I'm saying,
This isn't the stream that I thought it was. When I initially brought up watching this and that how much I liked it, it's the one where Destiny can't seem to get Erudite's name right.
no, those are different.
matter
I
how
wanna
much he
explain
tries.
why they're different. The reason is it's not.
How the
I'm
fuck
not
is
saying
that
that there's
one?
some terrible thing that would come out about you, or that she would say something terrible about you. I'm saying that it is I feel like inherently fucks you over the fact that I'm talking about you with your partner in public when you're not there to represent yourself. I don't feel comfortable doing that because I think it's wrong. But you, asshole.
Yeah, this still is a good conversation, but it's not the one I was thinking it was when I went into it, because Destiny knows her name just fine. The one that I was thinking of is the one where he keeps calling her Kayla, like over and over again, and it's really, really funny. Because it seems like he's doing it on purpose.
Want
Wait, me or
to
her?
you,
Okay.
Stephen, want to interview Shaylin about
I'll have to dig for it. I didn't see it on Destiny's channel because I thought I was going through everything chronologically on his channel. I don't know whose
a
channel I gotta find it
conversation
on.
where you're going to fuck me.
He did it so many
and
times.
you're gonna
Yeah,
fuck
dude, he
me
did.
in the interview with her. You're gonna do the same fucking underhanded.
At the time, and even now too, like, I can't say for sure because I'm so bad with names. Somebody will tell me their name and I will instantly forget it.
Cold thing and try to make me look as bad as possible.
Okay.
And you're
Do you
going
think
to
you're interpersonally better at relations than Steven is? Do you think your interpersonal style, the boundaries
not a
of the way that you try to
moderator
protect the
style
people that you love,
question.
is overall better than Steven's?
I think there
Such a
are,
dumb thing to say.
no, overall, I don't know, but I think there are certain things. It's not even better. It's just what works better for me. Like if you don't,
It's a good answer.
If you don't like certain things or you don't want certain things, then the way you live is better for you.
But then why don't you just tell Steven what your boundaries are, and then Steven gets to decide whether or not he's willing to work within them?
I did. I set a boundary. I said I don't want. I said Shaylin is not going to come on stream. I'm not
Which I
going to have
respect
her
him,
on.
right? I never tried to pull her arm or
No,
anything.
you know, me saying she's not going to come on stream, and I want to protect her from the chat. If the next thing, if 5 minutes later you say, "Is it true that you don't let her have a phone?" I don't know if that is totally respecting my boundary. I think that you kind of fucked
It's
me over a little
completely
bit.
unrelated. Did he respect your
You may
boundary?
think it's completely unrelated, but I don't think it
Did
is.
he respect your boundary about not bringing Shaylin on stream? Is that
Okay,
correct?
if I ask my co
I definitely went back quite a bit. The stream was split into 2 parts, I think. What? So, like, on her channel, there's like, hang on a minute. Let me look now. There's like 2 different ones, like back to back. And I thought, let me see. I thought they were exactly the same though.
Interpreting. So rape is okay. So rape, I believe rape and consent are very nuanced, complex.
Oh wait, I gotta go back a little on this other one. I pulled up the other one she has.
It kind of comports with my
nuanced. It's even worse than rape. Something can be.
I would like to map it onto there for you so you can see why I'm reacting the way for a second to get you to understand that if I did say if a therapist said, well, if
Oh shit. You're right. Well, I guess we're watching them in reverse order. Okay. Well, I guess after this one, I'll go to the other one.
Worker.
No, answer
Jesus
the question.
Christ.
Don't weasel out. Answer the question.
I already said no, it's not respecting my boundary. No.
How not?
I'm explaining it.
Yeah, I'm
If
going
I
to
a-
lead this conversation now because you're being a baby. So I'm going to help you
He
out.
didn't
here.
even do
So,
anything.
Okay.
Tell us now why that wasn't respecting your boundary. Your boundary was
Isn't
Shaylin
it
can't come
true?
on stream.
Isn't it true that little kids insult each other by calling each other?
So are
younger
you
than they
telling
are?
me that you stated a boundary and behind the boundary was a second secret one that you didn't tell him about and
No.
Steven actually crossed this one?
We did watch some of this that we're seeing right now, day before yesterday, but I was heavily distracted by chat. Chat was cracking me up, so I didn't
Well,
get
he
to pay
didn't
very
cross
much
the
attention.
boundary that you
He did.
stated. If
He
you
did.
wanted a different boundary, you should
wait,
have said it.
I didn't say he crossed it. I said he didn't respect it.
What's the difference?
I'll tell you. If I ask a coworker on a date and she says no, and I say, oh, okay, well, I accept your answer is no. And then I go to the lounge and I say, Sarah's pussy stanks, as loud as I can. While I would be technically not crossing her boundary, not forcing her to go on a date with me, I'm not exactly respecting it either.
They're wholly different boundaries. The first boundary is I don't want to go on a date with you.
By the way, thank you, Shieldro, for telling
And
me
then
that.
there's a lot of social convention boundaries as well. For example, typically when people say, no, I don't want to go on a date with you, while that's unrelated to what you stated, most people also don't want people making loud, negative
Absolutely.
comments about their
There's
genitals
another,
in
but there's
public.
also another
They're
boundary that's
different
crossing.
boundaries.
Well,
They're
do you,
different boundaries.
Okay,
Do you
so
understand that?
Well, okay. So in my mind, if the two behaviors are linked to one another, then the person would probably feel like their sexual boundaries about saying no to the date were also not being respected because they're saying, well, if I say no to a date, then somebody
No.
yells about my well,
They
this
would
is
have
just what I
felt that
think.
a different
That's fine.
boundary was crossed.
Okay.
They would have been like, yeah, he didn't force me to go on a date, but
That's
then
just
he did
okay.
say really
Well,
creepy
I'm
stuff
telling
about
you,
my vagina.
okay, I'm telling
which
you
is
how I
typically
See, I can't ever get accused of not respecting somebody's boundaries for that. Because no matter what the answer I get when I ask a woman on a date, I always scream that their pussies stank in the workplace.
an implied boundary.
One step
There's some
ahead.
social contracts that we work within.
Yes, I
and
get-
one
I
social
get- yes,
contract
I
is
get
probably
your
don't
perception.
It's just
loudly say shit
expected.
about people's genitals.
it's really
These are
hard to-
separate
it's-
boundaries. One
it's
of them's
really-
implicit and one of them is
Kyla,
explicit.
Kyla, it's
You
really hard to-
respected the
it's really-
explicit one.
it's really
you
hard to
didn't respect
argue-
the implicit one.
It's really hard to argue that two things aren't connected. So you can just say that I'm wrong for connecting them, but that is how I feel.
I'm not saying that they're unrelated. I'm saying they're two separate boundaries. And what you're saying to Steven is this was my boundary and you didn't respect it. But he
Yes.
did. He didn't respect your implicit boundary that was
No,
connected to
I
that.
know. We both.
Why would she even be angry about this? That I don't understand that. If that's what she thinks, which I agree a lot more with Mr. Girl, why is she so mad about it? I don't understand.
Are clear on where the other person is. No further comment about this.
Like, he's still on the receiving end of it. Why is she being, like, shitty? I don't get that. Weird.
Wait,
So
you understand?
I
For all the
understand.
implicitness, then am I not supposed to bring up anything related to Shaylin ever?
Not
Just so I
internal
can understand.
boundaries.
No, I like talking about Shaylin with you. Actually,
So this is the issue, right? Is this boundary?
it makes you feel. It makes it feel like you're
And
part of
Max,
the family.
Your whole
know?
shtick is that you're explicit and
talking
you
right
say
past her
things
now.
that people don't say, which means you say the implicit stuff.
That's not
so
a shtick.
Steven,
It's called a personality.
Steven not understanding that there was also an implicit boundary attached to that is
The big trick of changing the point from the way... Wait a minute. From the way to what or why to... What? Way to what or what to the way. Max does not have a shtick.
only
but that's
your
not the
fault for
shtick.
not
Sure, yeah,
expressing
yeah.
that. That is your responsibility exclusively. You can be mad that he didn't respect it,
If
but there's
Steven-
no way
if-
he could have mind read
if
that
Steven,
existed.
if Steven doesn't understand that asking somebody if they allow their girlfriend to use a phone could potentially start a harmful rumor about them that they don't allow their girlfriend to use the phone, then I think he needs to read some Internet 101. But I suspect
morning.
that he does
Maya,
understand
I
that
would
and
make
probably
the
just
same
does-
statement about you, that when you have videos that outwardly to any normal human being would look like this could be really abusive, and then you make an utterance saying like, no, I want to protect her from evil things online, and I think you even knowingly made that statement knowing it sounds a little bit dicey. You can't be surprised when the question comes up. Like,
How would you have said it?
well, I mean, I probably would have said the same thing, but I wouldn't be upset if somebody would ask me for clarification otherwise.
Oh,
Because
so
I
when
know, like,
you
of
say, hey, I heard you don't let your girlfriend have a phone, you're just asking for clarification.
I didn't say it. I think I
Just
asked if you
asking
ma-
questions with Destiny, everybody.
The problem with you
That's
saying
not a
you
fair
just asking
representation of what
questions-
Stephen did. And I think you like Stephen and know Stephen well enough that you should be charitable to your friend in this situation, right? You've already said that you don't think he's
I'm
intending
being
harmful things.
hyper charitable.
You are not, and you almost never are.
This is
you're
I'm at
Destiny. You're full of
1%.
Destiny.
I'm at 1% here.
The problem is that you have this thing in your mind about just asking questions,
Yeah.
but there are times when people are just asking questions. But there's no way for you to know because you're always trying to like imply there's like some insidious or mischievous.
Okay, so you do you think that asking that question had a negative impact on me?
Yeah, of course it did a little bit, but I mean it's kind of funny, and you walked me there by making incredibly fucking stupid statements regarding.
I believe she's angry right now at Mr. Girl because of what happened in the first part. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Mr. Girl basically compared her to a mini Dr. K, and she's bad at boundaries and role keeping. Max learned what I had to. The entire space, all the good people are still hostile.
Regarding like, oh
The
yeah, try to
hostile
protect her
space.
from evil people online. If you're willing to go far enough to make a statement like that on its face,
I'm
sounds
so upset
horrible,
that I didn't
of
figure
course
that
I
out.
broke a little bit back. Yeah,
So because there was 2 videos and I looked and like the setup's exactly the same and everybody's wearing the same clothes. Pardon me. It looked like they just uploaded the same video
course.
twice. I was confused
I
by
don't think
it.
that there is a graceful way when someone is
I don't think it's labeled as part 1 and
interrogating
part 2
you, but
either.
pretending they're not, about whether you're
No, it's
abusive to your
not.
girlfriend, and then say, hey, can I interview your girlfriend about whether you're abusive to her?
If you'll notice, my stream is picking up from where my last one left off, and it's labeled part 2 to avoid exactly this kind of confusion. And I didn't do that as a shot at this because I didn't even know before I started the stream.
Do you think
I
it's
don't-
helpful to characterize your friend talking to you about a situation where you were under a lot of shit already and then saying that it's an
With Max's
interrogation
love?
is the best way to characterize your friend's conversation with you? That
Yes.
feels like a really, really big
Yes.
straw man of who Steven is. And you and I both, we all
No,
agree that
he
he's a
was
little bit more
clearly
cold, but I
interrogating me.
don't know. He is not that cold.
I think
Absolutely not. If he wanted to interrogate you, he could have asked so many leading questions to make you look fucking horrific. And it would have been great for him.
Jesus
I don't think that
Christ.
would've
Didn't do
worked-
that.
I don't think that would have worked that well.
It would have
Look, I
worked
don't- again, I don't think
exceptionally
it's- I
well
don't think
because you
he's
say the
intent-
most
I don't-
outlandish things, Max.
I don't think he's intentionally trying to interrogate me. I just think that the setup of the conversation ended
No,
up that
you
way.
feel interrogated, which is wholly different than anything that actually happened. And the reality is, Max, that just because you
You're
feel
changing
some
the
way
subject.
about anything,
You're
no, I'm
gish
going to keep
galloping.
talking.
You're changing
I
the
will
subject.
mute
I
you.
was saying something
I will keep
else.
talking. If you
But you just
keep
don't like one word I
telling
said.
people this is how I feel,
You need
and
to
then
chill.
project
Whenever Mr. Grill uses debate words, it makes me laugh.
that world onto the landscape of everyone
God,
else,
we
the
need
reality
another
is you will
moderator.
always
Somebody get Brittany
be
in here.
wrong. You will always be wrong because the reality is that how you feel isn't always true. He didn't interrogate you. You felt interrogated. Those are
okay,
different things.
great.
And then to put on
You
Stephen the
just say-
responsibility
just say
of
that you
how
disagree.
you feel is
Kyla.
precisely oppositional to the thing that you constantly
Okay.
advocate for, which is
Yes.
that people should have to carry each other emotionally. And you make Stephen do it for you all the time. And you've been making him do it, and you've been making me do it because you aren't willing to regulate. You aren't willing to manage yourself. All you want to do is feel how you feel and then project that onto other people. It's
Smart enough to
cowardly,
LARP
it's
low
pathetic,
key?
and you need to stop doing it, or you are going to continue damaging your relationships online. Probably not with Steven because he doesn't fucking care about shit like this. But
Oh,
this
it's
is
absolutely he
causing
does.
protection, is you're constantly projecting onto people, and Steven's being like, yeah, you're fucking wrong, and you'll never move anywhere because you'll never believe anyone because you're so fucking convinced that all your feelings are true because they feel really big that you're never willing to hear anyone else. And that's the problem with this interpersonal dynamic is you're basically telling Steven he has to engage like you do with other people, which is unfair. It basically tells Steven that he doesn't get to be who he is in relationship with you. You won't accept that. He
You know
has to be
what?
the ideal version that you have painted for what you would like, ideally what precisely you would do. And that's a
Kyla.
shitty thing to do to your friends.
I did get raped over not wearing a shirt. You're right. Hey, lady.
Hmm.
Will you give me some water, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah, no problem.
And you need to stop doing it to Steven.
I
I
think
got
that you're
cherry
dual
blossom
role
trees.
You know, I thought about
It's a big deal.
doing today's stream shirtless too, just because of that. I was thinking about that earlier today.
in this conversation.
Like, I don't really have any reason to. I have done a stream that nobody cared about shirtless, because it was it meshed well with the theme, and I thought it was funny. Oh shit.
Is causing problems. Are you the moderator or are you doing something else?
I think I
Well,
became
she's
the
moderating
moderator.
now.
Okay.
Big trees.
She's girl
Uh,
bossing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I feel like if you want the power to ask questions and stop us from interrupting each other and stuff, I feel like you should not.
I don't need any recommendations from you about how I should or should not engage in this conversation. I feel completely
Okay.
comfortable with it, and if it isn't good, I'll talk to people that I respect about it.
Okay.
God damn.
Man, there's a lot of vitriol in
Yeah.
this room right now, going in all directions. Well, none is coming from me actually because I'm chill. But you guys,
Of course, yes.
you guys are both
Yes.
something else. Notice how I say that I'm chill even though I'm not, but then it like puts it in the viewer's mind that I am, and now you. Can
I did notice
for it,
that, and thank you
because
for
I said
pointing
in
it
the
out.
most
Though.
chill way. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing it out. Yeah. So
I was at first confused by not so erudite raping me ish. Why the hostility? But I like K and Big Cuck a tone, so I was happy to step away so Lilo could have the space she needed to heal. I don't know who any of those people are except for not so erudite.
Shaylin. Yeah. I think that.
Wait,
Yeah.
and then you can go on, okay? So, Kyla's being kind of
Thank
mean,
you.
but
Oh, I
my
see what I mean.
my chief criticism of you, and it has been always,
Yeah.
is more or less kind of what she said. So said in other words, my worry sometimes is that you have a way of viewing the world and how other people process things. And I just heard you say it in the Rectal conversation, especially in the way that you talk about mental illness. And you've done it in the ways you talk about sex, where I feel like you have a view of the world and you very much project that onto other people. And I don't know if Kyla was getting at this when she was trying to ask you, is your way better?
I actually don't disagree with that. I think Mr. Girl does project his worldview onto other people, and I think sometimes he's a little bit blind to it. But I feel like that's also like extremely normal. People try to use that to like as a weapon against him, but I'm like, that's like one of the most human things anybody can do, really. That's how I expect most people are going to behave in most situations.
Because it feels like if you either aren't telling people that they have to process things like you do, then you're just already assuming they do. And if they say otherwise, it's because they're engaged in some level of self-deception or they're lying to you about it. And that can be really frustrating. I pointed this out in conversations you've had with Lauren before, that it can be frustrating for another person to overcome your assumptions about them because they seem like fixed and immovable. That's the feeling that I get.
Okay.
Sorry, Sax.
Do you see how? What if I'm right and you're wrong? Can we do a specific example? I know we can kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
walk through, and I'll
I
walk
love
you through
specific examples. Yeah.
Okay, I'll walk you through my thought process. So, will you tell me a example?
I
of
love
what you're talking about?
specific examples.
Um,
Favorite kind of
It could
example
be
is
something, anything
specific.
related to me, I guess, if that's because that's kind of what we were talking about. On whether do I trust people or I don't know. You can pick something, right?
Okay, so my characterization of you is that you are scared, and you don't know that you're scared of trusting other people. And you're saying a thing you worry about with me is that you can't convince me that that's not true, and that I'm stuck in believing that.
Sure.
Okay,
Can I? Well,
like a trans person.
in
Sorry, go ahead.
regards to that, because you brought this, you brought up a specific example, right?
Okay.
So here are some things that I'll say about that, and then you can tell me if you want me to continue talking or shut the fuck up. Okay. This is something that I've thought about a great deal because I have been fucked over by a lot of different people before streaming, even in my
Okay.
life. So one of the things that I wonder is, especially because I have a lot of there's a lot of characteristics that I might have in terms of events that have happened to me in my past and in terms of how I relate to people presently that seem like they could be indicators of trauma. So these are things that I've thought about before. Is there a chance that I am responding in some way that is like a trauma response? Is there a chance that my behavior is like maladaptive? Is there a chance that I'm missing something, that I'm engaged in small? These are things that I've thought about quite a bit before. Now, do you agree that it's possible for me to think about these things and come to some conclusion on my own, or am I incapable of doing that? Because, and then my next question is going to be
incapable.
Okay. So then my next question is going to be, let's say, so there, we both agree there is some fact of the matter of whether or not I'm doing this, right? Whether or not I am engaging with people in a cold manner as a maladaptive defensive mechanism, right? We agree that that's possible, whether I am or am. There is a fact of the matter.
I'm not sure if I think of it as a factual thing. I think I more think of it as like a lens.
Well, no, hold on. There has to be whether I am or am not doing something.
I don't think I agree with that.
Fuck. Okay. Then epistemically, we can have no.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me ask you this.
Well, let me just finish this, and then you can do what you can say what you want. Because we have to agree that there's a fact of the matter. Because my next question is, if there is a fact of the matter, how do we resolve a disagreement to figure out who's right or wrong? How can we ever do that about my mental state?
I don't know if we have to, but you mean how could we?
Well, come on, we want to. Don't say we don't have to. Nobody has
Like
to
Will in
do
his
anything,
toilet.
right? Melina, how do we fix our relationship? Well, we don't have to.
You thought I wanted to be a documentary maker? I've always referred to it as like a documentary style video. It's not exactly going to be a documentary.
I could just go back to Sweden. Okay. Clearly, we have a disagreement
I think
here,
part of your part of your defensiveness relies on you not figuring this out. So it's not. Look, the thing is that if you figure it out, your guard disappears. So you.
Yeah, but then have you created a problem? You're not religious, right? If somebody told you that they believed in God and they made all their decisions on that, would you ever appeal to the fact that, like, well, if you have an unfalsifiable belief and you're using this to make important decisions about life, isn't that kind of a bad thing? Would you not say the same here, that you've essentially created an unfalsifiable lens through which you believe I view the world, and we have no way to figure out who's right or wrong? Isn't that almost like a pointless statement to even make?
No, and I would like to respond when.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
And also, I resent that comment about Will. Will's a big time homie.
Do you believe that you have an unconscious?
Do
you believe that you have? Do you have feelings and thoughts that you're not aware of and can't be aware of?
The problem is I don't know what you mean by that. I'm probably going to say yes, but I'm cautiously saying it because I don't know what you mean by that. But probably, depending on how you're using it. Now, if you're going to say there's like a whole second Steven inside of me, two wolves living in me.
No. I'm just saying, like, do you believe that I have an unconscious? Do you think that it's possible or likely that I am projecting sometimes?
That we engage in behaviors that we're not outwardly aware. Yeah, of course. I probably do the same. I would have to say, yeah. Most human beings probably do.
So
yeah, sure.
I'm feeling things that I don't know that I'm feeling, and I'm thinking things I don't know what I'm thinking. That's what Kyla just yelled at me about for like.
Don't talk at me, man. It's so fucking hostile. Not know what I'm saying. Insert your take on awesome text words. You do not know what I meant, and you put a statement that's not. Okay.
5 minutes, right? Is that
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm feeling, and so that leads me to think things that aren't true about what is going on about other people, and say things that aren't true because I'm projecting my own feeling. And the projection really is a projection of the unconscious. You don't project what you know you're feeling. You project what you don't know you're feeling because you don't know that you're feeling it. And then if you become more aware of what you're feeling, you're less likely to do that. If I know that I'm angry about something, if I'm having some mommy issue, then if I'm thinking about my mother and I'm feeling terrible about my mother, then I'll be more likely to deal with that internally. But if I don't realize that I'm being triggered about my mother, then I start calling women demons. Like that.
Sure. I would probably like fight you on specifics of this, but more or less I would agree with this model. Bringing awareness to some kind of subconscious thought means that you're probably going to be less likely to project it, at least like in a super outward manner to other people. I probably agree most of this, yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that you have an unconscious?
Insofar as how you're talking about it so far, yeah, of course. Some
Okay.
underlying mood or vibe or feelings that I might not always be aware of if I'm not being very mindful about it or something. But sure.
Okay. And I think a big part of being empathetic is being able to connect to the feelings and thoughts of people that they themselves are not aware of.
Okay.
That's okay. So you're looking at someone's behavior and their behavioral patterns and stuff they say and their facial expression, and pairing that with your own kind of emotional imagination and through and knowledge about the world. And like
You turned into the same evil shit of chat. Most just ban with a chuckle. I'm not gonna ban you. Like, look, I said that lightheartedly anyways. If you don't like my response, like, look, if it's a big issue, like, then I just don't have to respond to the stuff you say, man. I'm watching a video and stuff, and like, I'm trying to respond to you and all that, but like, I'm not. I can only get what I can get from text, you know. That's the limitation to it. I'm not trying to do nothing.
I see you do this on stream all the time. You'll say, well, a lot of times people will do this, but they don't realize they're doing this.
Yeah, I have to think that I know what somebody's saying in chat in order to respond to it. Otherwise, I'll be incapable of responding to it. That's how reading and responding works, dude. I have to.
And based on my like life experience or knowing lots of people like this or whatever, I am deducing that it's possible that they're doing XYZ. I think this is something we all do. Okay.
Sure, we can. Now, I'll enter this into the record and then you can keep going.
Yeah.
I agree with you that we all do that. But the difference is that, what's the opposite of Bayesian? When I say like a Bayesian probability, does that make any sense to you?
No, I think you said this once to me before.
Sure. Okay, so like
You explained
I
it and
have,
forgot.
yeah, when I think of somebody like this, so I might think that like
Oh,
Max
the
is-
80% of me letting Shaylin have a phone thing like that.
Well, so like I might think that like, okay, I believe that Max has like a 25% chance that he's like doing this particular thing to Shaylin. Now that's a percentage in my head. As I collect more information over time, I'm gonna adjust that up and I'm gonna adjust that down. So maybe when I first met you, I'm like, there's like a 50% chance that this dude's gonna fuck me over. And then we go through a couple of events together. You don't publicly lash out at me, even though I've said some pretty scalding things about you in a relationship. It's like, okay, I'm adjusting this down and down and down over time. It's like a 25% through 20%, probably like a 50% chance you'd fuck me over. It gets lower over time, right? And then maybe you go through a really huge situation, like, okay, it's like a 5%, or maybe a 1% chance, right? Over time. I'm adjusting that probability as time goes on. It feels like to me, while we make the same assumptions about people, it doesn't feel like you approach it in a Bayesian sense, but it's in a far more fixed sense that we make the same assumptions about people, but I'm willing to change my assumptions as I see new behavior. But it feels like for you, you make an assumption about somebody, and then you'll find a way to make every other behavior fit that initial assumption, and there's no way to change it or move you off it. Yeah, go.
Okay, so the empathy I'm talking about is different from, you're talking about like cat empathy. Where when I sit down on the bed and one of my cats is on the bed, she's like, what are the chances that he's going to sit on me? The ears perk up, tail starts flapping around, and they're like, well, this has happened like 500 times and he's never sat on me, so I guess I'm okay. And they sit back down. You're trying to predict behavior in the
Like
future
cat empathy.
based on signs you see now. But I'm talking not about predicting your behavior. I don't know what the fuck you're going to do. I'm talking about drawing an emotional landscape in my head of how you're feeling and how you work.
Okay.
And I'm talking about it's not written in stone. That I think you're conflating you not being able to change my mind about it with it being written in stone. But the only person who can't change my mind about it is you, because we're talking about your.
But that
No,
seems like an issue, right? And I see
It
this
might.
happen in
It might.
conversations.
Can I just explain this?
Go ahead.
Can I
Yeah,
just-
go.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm talking about feelings you are not aware of, and more than just not being aware of them, the way you function in your life, you can't be aware of them.
Okay, I reject that mental model, but go ahead. Just
I'm saying there are certain
would
things
you?
you do and ways you behave that you are reliant on being able to do that I think would fall apart if you knew, or have to change if you knew how you're feeling. So part of your part of what I see as your guardedness is predicated on you not knowing how you're feeling.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's like a mental model that I would reject. I don't think I could ever truly believe that somebody has unless we want to get into really esoteric things like DID, which I don't even believe is real.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying
but
that you.
I understand what you're saying.
Saying you're
I
a
understand what
repressed dude.
I understand.
The ID is extremely difficult to believe in. I used to. Not, and now I guess I do. But it's more like it's like I believe it because I read it in a textbook kind of thing, and not because like it lines up with like my true feelings.
I understand what you're saying. I
That's
don't believe in
all.
repression. I don't believe that's real. I don't believe that's a
Okay.
real thing. I don't think that there are thoughts that people have that are absolutely like actually inaccessible to them that like an
Okay.
independent person could observe.
I'm not talking about
go ahead.
thoughts, more like beliefs and feelings.
Are you a staunch psychodynamicist, just to understand? Like, would you
I
say
don't know.
psychodynamic is like
don't
you
know.
use kind of like psychodynamic? We
I
have a
don't
degree
know.
in psych, so I know that you know what psychodynamic or psychoanalytic maybe is a better word.
It may be, but I want to just say what I think.
I'm just trying to understand. I just had the question. Sorry.
Okay, yeah,
ahead.
maybe. Okay. So I believe that you have feelings that you're not aware of and that you're not comfortable with. And
I don't know the difference between the DSM-4 and the DSM-5's Asperger's syndrome diagnostic criteria.
I think that's true of everybody.
Sorry.
And so whenever I think somebody else is feeling something, if it's like that they're secretly gay and don't know it, that person cannot then convince me that they're not. They're the only person who can't convince me that they're not. Because we're
but
talking
isn't there
about
some-
let me just fucking finish, for the love of Jesus Christ in heaven.
I just wanna
We're
ask
talking
you-
about we're talking about your blind spot, okay?
Yeah, I
Here's an
understand. We're talking about
analogy.
blind spot,
I'm
but
saying
you
I'm
can- I
saying
understand.
I'm
You're going
saying
to say the same thing 50 times. I just want to ask you a question. You can keep talking. I'm just asking you
Well,
questions.
but you reject the premise. So you're
I
going
do,
in
which is
fucking
why I'm
circles.
asking you more
You just
questions.
asked me if I think you have DID. You're out of your fucking
didn't
mind.
say
he didn't.
that
He
at
didn't
all.
say-
Hold on. I'm just asking you questions so that you don't restate the same thing for the 50 million.
Bro, I got one thing to say. I've been trying to say it for like 10 minutes, and then you can
No,
ask
you're
me or
not.
say
You're good.
whatever.
Okay.
I've got one
Hold
thing
on.
to
I
say.
hope for the love of God, you better say something new. Go.
Logically, it follows if you cannot be aware of some of your
Then
own
only
feelings.
you can be aware of it. You're restating the same thing you've said a
No,
million
let me
times.
finish. Let me
Okay.
finish.
Be careful.
You cannot be aware of all of your own feelings. And I cannot be truly aware of your feelings either, because I'm just imagining what they're like. That is what empathy is. So neither of us can truly be aware, and it cannot truly ever be reconciled as a fact one way or the other, unless you like shoot up a school and then we're like, oh, I guess he was kind of upset. Barring some kind of explosion like that, we will never know. And so
Okay.
so there's no point in fucking arguing about it.
Okay.
Because
Can I ask you a
logically, it's
question?
a box you can't
I'm
look
gonna
in.
restate. I understand. Yes. Okay. How
So
can
why
I
are you
see that?
arguing?
How can I in? because we have different mental models, right? Or
Wait, are we
different
on 6? Oh, 6 would be the next one, right?
models of the mind, I guess.
Okay.
So here's a question, because you brought up the gay thing, okay? And we were stuff related to me or repression. Okay? Here's my question, okay? If somebody had a belief, if I thought that they, and also we disagree on the definition of empathy, hardcore, just so I just want to put that out there, aware of that, okay? Let's say that I'm having a conversation and there is a fact of the matter about their state of mind that I disagree with their own analysis of. I always feel like there is a way that I could probe to bring about some awareness of that person's state of mind. So for instance, when you bring up like the gay example, I feel like there is a line of questions that I can have where I can bring about a person's awareness that there's at least something going on there that needs to be analyzed. Do you ever get horny when you look at a guy? Do you ever feel like you don't belong around women?
Yes.
Do you ever masturbate to things of men? When you're watching
Yes.
porn, do you look at the dick more than
Yes.
the pussy, right?
Yes.
There's like some, even if they haven't thought about it like explicitly, there's some line of questioning I could do. So my issue is that like, you're telling me you're telling me that you feel like there are thoughts that are inaccessible to me and you can't even do anything to bring an awareness of these thoughts to me. There's no line of questioning. There's no way that I could be aware of my blind spots. I have to jump into the pool of Max and say, Max, reorganize my mind because I'm so clueless. I can't even figure it out. You can't even make me aware of it.
Okay, I have a two-part answer to your question.
Go for it.
I
It
think
can be
you
a
could-
three-part answer if you want.
No, it's
Go
just
for
a
it.
two-part. I think you
Okay.
could become much more aware of your own feelings and thoughts than you are. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that you should do that with a therapist, though. I don't think I should try to do it because that would be a triple relate. I mean, like, I think friends can talk about their feelings with each other, but you're so guarded and like tightly wound about it, and you're so controlling. You're going to interrupt me now because you're so controlling about the conversation. You won't even let me like talk freely about the idea that maybe you have feelings. You've got a fan base of like a fucking million people who will just like shout like, "No, Destiny doesn't care. Destiny doesn't care about this. Destiny doesn't give a fuck." Blah blah blah. That's like you
That's
got
true.
armor. You got people wearing copies of your armor. You got armor made of people. You got a whole. It's a whole story about you not having vulnerability. So
You've got armor
you're
made of
pretty
people's my
fucking
favorite.
protected. So I don't think me trying to tear down that protection is a good idea for either of us. But I do think that you can dig into that somewhat if you wanted to. The second part is, I think there's always going to be another part that you can't dig into. There's always more. There's always an unconscious. I don't think you can. You're feeling things faster than the words can come to your mind to describe what they are. Unless you're like meditating 24 hours a day, there are going to be times where you're feeling things and things are happening in the back of your mind that you're not aware of. And so you can't ever get all of it, but I think you get a lot more than where you're at. Yeah. I think you could be much more introspective.
Okay, so if I tell you that I'm willing to explore any of these things, I'm not guarded. I sure as fuck don't let my audience make decisions about my emotional or mental states ever. That I would be willing to talk or explore any of these topics with you. Is there no way that I could convince you otherwise? Or is like the mental model that Max has of Steven's mind just complete and unchangeable?
No, if you said that, then I would think that you are less guarded, obviously, that you're willing to explore at least what I think I see in you, but there's still always a thing in all of us that we can never access. I mean, again, could just be a disagreement about my mental model. But you can see how, if that is my mental model, somebody who believes that they know themselves really well, when I don't believe any of us really know ourselves that well, I come across as, I think I know you better than you know yourself. You can't change my mind about anything. All these other criticisms.
Sure, and I agree with that. But I'm always interested in gathering outside perspective on who I am. That's interesting, especially somebody that has a perspective such as your own. You can tell me, but there's not much to work with when you just say like, you're guarded, and I say, how? And you go, well, you just are in ways that you don't even know because of things you're feeling that you don't even know you're feeling. And it's like, well, fuck, there's not really much for me to work with there, I guess. There's
That's
no
pretty
behavior
valid.
I can change. There's no thought or feeling I can reflect on. There's no amount of introspection I could do because I don't even know what I'm looking for. I guess the issue is just that, like, I feel like if I was to offer a critique to somebody, or I've offered critiques to you, I feel like I can point out a feeling you have, and I can give you an act to work on, and I can give you examples to guide you through that process. So, for instance, I might say specifically, I think that you project emotions onto other people. I can give examples. I think that you've done it in your conversations with me and erudite. I think you've done it in your conversations with Lauren, where you project a thing. I think you trust me, but you're not saying it. Or I think that you are emotionally guarded, but you're not aware of it, right? And then I can give you things to work on. Try following a conversation with somebody where you actually believe what they say and actually believe it, and then just follow that train of thought and see if everything makes sense, or see if something down the road doesn't make sense. And you're like, you said you're really guarded, but like I asked you this question about like, would you be comfortable with us hanging out in real life? And then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know about that one. I'm really nervous about that. And you're like, well, maybe you are guarded. And they'd be like, oh shit, maybe, right? So I could give you, here's the thing you should change. Here are examples of you doing it. And here's like how you can change it. I feel like I could walk you through the whole process. But when I ask you for me, what do you think I'm doing wrong? Or like, what's the examples? It's all very nebulous. Like, well, I think you're guarded.
So
you
want me to be more specific?
Well, yeah, because like if you're going to give me something to introspect on or some challenge of my character, I would be interested. Like, oh yeah, what do you think? Yeah.
Okay, about what? Which thing? I've said a lot of claims. Which do you want me to tell you why I think that?
Well, the guarded thing is the central one. I think that's what you said generally.
I think that you since
I think this is where it picks up where I initially had really, really liked it. I think this is where they start to talk to each other like big boys.
we started talking, have been very reluctant to. I think you've run a bit hot and cold. I think that you're unpredictably available.
Okay, am I allowed to talk? Because I can.
Sure, I mean you can
respond.
disagree. I know you're gonna, but like
Well, because my
Okay,
question would be, because like, so when you say like, for instance, like you're unpredictable, I'm pretty sure every time you've messaged me, I'm
Said you're
willing to chat.
unpredictably
And then
available.
I'll message you when I see stuff pop up about you, and I'm willing to chat. So I feel like I'm available as I possibly can be.
You
Yeah,
said
go ahead.
it's not. I'm not saying logistically available, but I mean emotionally. You saying things like, if you never reached out to me, we would probably never talk again. That just seems like an objectively guarded position to take in relationships, of being like, and you said the same thing about Melina. You said with you and Melina, if you guys didn't talk to me, I would never talk to you again. To me, that paired with a lot of other things you say, like I'm not a friend person.
Sure. Is it not possible? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and and I'm understanding if you're building this like I think it's adductively, not inductively. I think it's adductively. It might be inductively, but when you start stacking all of these things up, it can point in one direction, and I agree with you. But it also feels like there are lots of stories that these could also fit that wouldn't match what you're saying now. So for
Okay, but
instance,
there's more. There's like it's like thing after thing after thing after thing after thing.
yeah, so
after
like
thing after
yeah,
thing.
so here I understand what you're saying, but like so here's like the issue that we run into is that like I'm not trying to impugn you, but I'll bring out there's an argument called a Gish Gallop. What the Gish Gallop does is I give you 6 bad reasons why an argument is true, and when we go through 1, it doesn't really substantiate the conclusion. If we go through P2, it doesn't really substantiate P3, P4. We go through all these different premises, they're all wrong, but every time I rebuke one, you always bring up the other 5.
Yeah, but we're talking about a constellation of behavior and statements. There's no one thing that anybody can do to make me think they're guarded.
Yeah, I agree, but like a constellation, there are many pictures that we could draw out of the stars.
Absolutely. That's why when you asked me, when you said, is there an absolute truth about whether you're a guarded person? No, there isn't. I'm just drawing a this is why I said that empathy is information and statistics about you, just that I've observed, plus imagination. And the imagination is what picture do I draw in the constellation? What constellation do I see?
Well,
and so it's not. I'm not saying it's objectively true about you, and I don't think we should argue about what it is, whether it is.
Well, when I say there's a fact of the matter, all I'm saying is that like there is one story where I actually do avoid people because I'm really guarded, and it makes me uncomfortable that people get too close. And there's another story.
See, I think this is how people should talk to each other. I think this is like pretty good and productive. It's nice.
Where I just
nice.
kind of quote unquote avoid people because I actually really love streaming and working, and I'll just sink all my time in that because that's actually super fun.
I know the story you tell yourself, and I know the story you tell out loud. You don't have to fucking recite it. But like you're asking me for.
I'm saying
Max,
you're asking me what
would all of the tension go away if he just agreed with you that he probably has like a blind spot?
Mr. Girl's not looking for an agreement or disagreement or a fight or anything like that. He's simply explaining what he thinks. It doesn't matter what the fact of the matter is. It doesn't matter what kind of evidence Destiny can provide one way or another. When the response to him saying what he thinks is being rebuked, it's going to get frustrated. And I know that because I'm the same way. If I'm trying to say what I think and somebody says, well, no, because like you can't say no. No doesn't mean you have no ability to deny it because it's just what I think.
To like how guarded he actually is?
No,
like, would all of the contentions go away if he just agreed?
He's being guarded now. He's asking me, what do you see when you look at me? And I'm saying, okay, let me draw you a constellation. And I get after 3 dots, you yank the paintbrush out of my hand and say, no, what if I draw a different picture? And it's like, well, yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
You say you're introspective. You say you're introspective and that you're willing to listen to feedback. But after I talk for like 8 seconds, you have to tell me, well,
Destiny was trying to interrupt him to say that too.
What if instead of your stupid picture you're drawing, I drew a different fucking picture in which I'm not guarded, bitch?
So is it,
it's like, well, yeah, I know. I've seen that picture already.
Wait, so do you not think that he's open to your criticisms? Because you're saying that he's just rejecting your criticisms. Because it seems like you don't have an issue with him not agreeing with your.
He doesn't. His criticisms aren't being rejected. It's what he thinks it's being rejected, and that's not acceptable.
Your criticisms.
I don't think
to
that
me
Steven
at least it's
will
not.
allow or is allowing a conversation in which I actually say what I think of him to happen. And he said he wanted me to be more specific. When I started getting more specific, now he's saying that I'm gish galloping and that each individual
oh
thing
my God,
doesn't-
hold on, stop.
Okay,
if
he is wrong about
you
that.
can lay out the total. I'll give you 3 minutes. If you want to lay out the totality of your picture, go for it. Okay.
So I don't think it's objectively true that you're guarded. It is a picture that I'm drawing based on my beliefs about what would be good for you, which I think would be for you to get more in touch with your feelings and for you to start trusting people more. Because I think that you are keeping people at arm's length, me and others, and that I think that this is bad for you. I think you should take more risks with people. I think time after time, you say things like, I don't need other people, I don't trust anybody, or I trust everybody, which is the same as me not trusting anybody.
Yeah.
You say you'll never reach out to me or your wife or whoever, which I assume this means a lot of people, that you do not reach out when you need emotional support. I don't think you even think of yourself as ever needing emotional support. You say that when you get in a fight with Melina, when you get upset, you leave, you withdraw until you calm down, meaning that the regulation of your emotions and like solvent or salve on your, not solvent, salve on your wounds emotionally does not come from other
Solvent on
people.
your
It comes from
wounds.
getting away from other people. I think that you feel like something bad will happen if you are upset around another person. This is the part of the thing I was talking about with Shaylin. I think watching me interact with Shaylin like that and watching me provoke her and stay in the room while she's provoked is freaky to you. I think that I think you're testing me also. I think
This is this is how you should talk to people that you're close with when you have deep conflicts. I firmly believe that. This is how I talk to people that I'm close with when I'm having issues with them. I think it gets rid of all the bullshit.
you unknowingly will, as you said, I've said some pretty scalding things about Max, and he hasn't fucked me over yet. I think that it's not just that you are using this like, oh, I'm an asshole sometimes, and then if people
Oh, I'll add too that you should probably also expect people to react the way Destiny is reacting, because that's also pretty normal. People don't like hearing how you think if it's not it doesn't align with how they think about themselves. It's usually going to be very offensive to them. But I don't think that means that you shouldn't tell them. I think that if you don't, you're lying to them, and you're like necessarily hurting your relationship with them.
don't betray me, then I know I can trust them. I don't think it's just that you're observing this happening. I think it's actually something that you are doing. I think it's part of how you function, is that I have felt, I didn't understand what was happening at first, but I have felt that you do take kind of like shots at me ever since we started like talking. And yeah, the picture it's painting is of, for me, is that I feel like you're pushing me away a bit. I feel like it's I feel like a lot of your orbiters cannot convince you that they actually care about you. And I think that I can convince you of that. And I think that you are kind of freaked out by it. I think you're used to relationship setups that confirm your belief that, yeah, people like you like a coworker, but essentially they're using you. And I think that when you see signs from me that I actually care more about you than I do about whatever I can get from you in terms of my career, I think that that freaks you out a bit. So that's the picture of Steven's guardedness that is in my mind. And it's not, and like any picture I have of somebody's unconscious behavior, I can't co-author that with them. It's like the same thing I keep saying about trans people. Like you can't tell me how I should see you. I just don't believe in that, like with anything or anyone.
So what do you feel then if Stephen wholly rejects that narrative?
I feel unsurprised. I don't know. I feel if he says he wholly rejects it, I guess I don't believe him. I think he probably
Maybe my brain is distorted. How would I know? I wouldn't.
he probably thinks
And I would act like I'm totally fine.
it's worth thinking about. Probably not true. Kind of interesting. Worth thinking about. I think the part that might be like red hot or radioactive to him is that it might be nice or touching that I am even thinking about it.
Why do you want to convince him that you care?
Why would anybody want to convince anybody that they care?
Because I do.
I know.
Yes.
Why should he know that?
Why do you want to? You said I
Well,
want to convince you that I care.
It's an exclusion of me and my nature from our relationship if he doesn't understand this about me.
But even though he tells you that he does understand it, what if he's just not ready to rely on you because he's so like guarded and like withholding and untrusting? Like, what if he's just
Well,
not ready to?
That's fine.
intellectually knowing that I care and actually feeling that I care, I think are different.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Girl would have an issue with the with what Erudite's saying, but the problem is that he wants Destiny to understand it.
Right, but what if he's not ready to feel it? Like, what if that's just not where he's at?
Yeah, I think it's likely that he's not. I'm not trying to force him to feel this or know this. I'm just bringing it up because it feels like as the more we talk, the closer we get. And so as our relationship continues, it becomes whatever shots he takes at me hurt more and make me angrier. And then my anger requires more intimacy to process. Like, this is the most intimate conversation we've ever had, I think.
By a lot.
Then that requires a
I think this might be the most intimate conversation I've ever seen on a stream, to be honest. Streamers don't talk to each other about their problems like this. I'd be like a lot more invested in other streamers if I seen this kind of conversations happening, though. I think it's wonderful. I think it also like makes me feel like less of a weirdo for talking like this with people.
a little more intimacy, and like I can try to like
Because I
feel
understand
my
this is
way
still
through that
weird
and
for
like
people.
like kind of set up the scaffolding, but yeah, just I think the long
All three of these streamers, all of these humans on screen 4 really are some of they're top in the world of being closer to being self-honest. Oh, I didn't even see you say that yet. But yeah.
longer you know somebody,
good
the more you
observation,
talk to them,
Saxon.
the more shit you've been through together, the more your relationship needs to be set up to be able to process
catch.
those conflicts. And
What if
so
he
I-
doesn't want that? Like, what if he doesn't want what you're prescribing for like levels of intimacy and depth with you?
Why is I
then
don't
I just think we're gonna have
I don't understand why she's running down this questioning. It's such a weird disruption to put into it.
For like levels of intimacy and depth with you.
then I just think we're gonna have
There's gonna be
a lot
friction,
of
baby.
tension or weird
So why isn't there
Conflict.
space for what Steven wants in this relationship then?
you know what? You tricked me. You have your moderator mask on, but I see
Yeah.
the red-faced, bloodshot eyes and tears right behind
Just
it. So
answer
you
the
don't. No,
question.
fuck you, lady. You don't get to fucking moderate after your outburst before.
No,
Why
no,
don't
no.
you
Why
take?
is there no
why don't
space
you
for you?
take off
Why is there
that
no
little
space for
mask?
Steven? Okay, I'll
and
let
why
Steven
don't
ask
you just call me a baby and call me names? Then I'll know you're saying what you think.
Okay, so why
she's
why
super
is there no
annoying.
space for
Why? Well, I'm just
Steven?
Yeah, I think that this is one of Not So Erudite's worst showings maybe ever. It's it's like earlier she said I'm being so neutral here. Like she's very much not. And the fact that she's interrupting like this like really impressive level of sincerity when there is an audience to sort of like pick at him, it just feels so petty. And it leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. I don't like it. Not sure how much of like this part of it that I remember from before.
Just asking questions with Kyla and Steven, everybody. Why don't you say what you fucking think, since that's all
I
you're
already
doing?
told you what I think. I'm asking
Great.
you questions now.
Okay.
But what's the answer to the question?
What's your question? I don't want to answer your questions.
Well, why would you weasel out of the question?
It's not
Steven, do you
weaseling
wanna
out of it
answer
saying
the
I don't want to answer it.
I
Weaseling out of a question is doing some kind of like rhetorical sleight of hand to get out of answering it, or like by like changing the subject or like something along those lines. Saying I don't want to answer your question isn't weaseling out of it.
Other set of things.
It's not wanting to answer it and being honest
so the
about
question
it.
was
Yeah.
Weaseling out of it is inherent. You're saying they're dishonest about it.
why is there no space for what Steven wants? Like if Steven doesn't want that level of depth, why is there no space for it?
He's not making him do it. He just wants to talk about that he sees it.
There's no. I just don't. Steven wants to be less close. Is that what you're saying? and I'm trying
So
to force
you
him
said
to be.
you prescribed this thing of like levels of closeness and intimacy, right? You talked about kind of the way that you perceive relationships grow and deepen. Correct?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And that is a
relation.
reasonable enough system that you outlined, right?
I think you think it was reasonable. Do I agree? I agree. You think it was reasonable.
Yeah. So you've
Yes.
outlined kind of the system of intimacy.
She's
And so
out
what I'm
of her
saying is
depth.
that sounds like something to some extent.
A 26-year-old psych student. She's afraid of You think she's afraid of me?
Ideally you want. Now you're not putting your wants on him. I hear you saying that. You're not saying I have
That's
to
funny.
get this.
Yeah.
But what if Steven is saying I don't want that?
I
Steven's-
genuinely like not so erudite for the most part. Like obviously it's not her worst showing. Oh, you don't think so? Oh wow. All the interactions that I've had with her have been like really positive. So like I have nothing personal against her, but like I just don't like this.
saying he doesn't want to be close with me or friends with me. That's fine.
As close as you've prescribed.
Right. You know what? I said this to my father once. I said, we can either be close or you can stop being an asshole. If you're going to say underhanded shit about me and be a fucking asshole, then we're going to have to be close in order to process how angry that makes me. And we're going to need to have space for that. Or we
I
can
like
be
that.
nice to each other.
Driving
and
without
not
a buddy is practically illegal. I think streaming is like driving.
be that close. But we can't really have like a distant, friendly colleague relationship where you take underhanded shots at me or fuck me over in the way that really you should only be fucking over your good friends. So I feel, I guess I would just say like, I'd probably set more boundaries around like what I'm willing to talk about. Like I'd be like, you know, if we're not going to be close, I don't really want to do a stream with you about my intimate relationship. If there's not going to be room for me to be like, you know, I'm mad about the shit you're saying about it, I probably would set more boundaries around that.
Okay. Steven, what do you want from the relationship?
I don't think we have to.
I want everything Max wants. Okay. Just okay.
I'm not trying to ask him what he wants, and I don't.
Yeah, I think
you,
I understand. You're like expressing like what you.
yeah, I'm just trying to explain, I guess,
Sure,
the
I understand.
context for what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about.
I got you.
I'm not trying to
Okay.
put you on the spot.
If
I feel like
have
that
a
was so
different view of
obvious, too.
myself-
Like that was such an obvious given. I don't understand how not so erudite wouldn't get that. And if she does get it, why she wouldn't respect it and not chime in the way that she has been. It seems really inappropriate to me. Having a buddy there to keep things real makes true commentary, react content good. Sure. Speaking of that, everybody's favorite non-streamer, Mr. Goal Orbiter, did agree to come on in the near future. Benny is confirmed sometime for the near future. So we
I've
have Benny
collected
up
all
in
the
this
traits that
bitch,
you've gone here.
which I'm pretty excited about, not gonna lie.
And if I think that all of these traits are explained by other aspects of my character or personality, how do we ever get past that? Because if I say, let's say that I make this statement. Well, this is a true statement. I enjoy talking to you. I like to be as close to you as I could be to any other person that I talk to. That would be fun for me. That's why I talk to you.
I feel like that's gonna come off as a bit of an insult to Mr. Girl. As close as I am to anybody, I feel like he might take that to mean like not necessarily a good thing. Like that's pretty low down on the list.
As much as I do. Which
Benny?
I guess might not seem like a lot to you, but given
Benny's the black dude that calls into the hotline a lot. He's one of the few people that's really good at getting Mr. Girl to change their mind about things. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about.
the totality of friendships I have
Even if you
online,
disagree that there's no
gone
community.
okay so far.
No, it does seem like. I mean, for you, it seems like a lot to me.
Yeah. So if I say that though, there's always going to be
Alright, well-
a barrier between us where we have an incongruency about my mind.
Yeah.
How is that? And it feels like
Okay.
I feel like I have a way to resolve that, but it feels like for you, the only resolution is either you kind of like grinning and bearing and saying, fine, I'll believe you, even though you really don't, or me saying, okay, Max, I'm going to trust that you know more about me than I do. How do we move past that? How's that
Well,
ever?
I guess I feel the same way I do about like trans people, where I'm like, I don't just because I don't agree with you about who you are or what you are doesn't mean I hate you, and it doesn't mean I have to hate you, and it
It's not
doesn't mean
about
we.
hating you. I don't want you to. It's not. I don't. Neither of us want our relationship to be us not hating each other, right? That's not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
goal.
but I guess I'm just saying, like, do you feel like we
He might
have to
have.
resolve the fact?
What did he say? Did he double negative that?
It's not. I don't. Neither of us want
Neither?
our relationship to be us not hating each other, right?
Nah.
That's not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
goal.
but I guess I'm just saying, like, do you feel like we
Yeah, he
have
did
to
double
resolve
negative that.
the fact that you see me differently from how I see myself?
I don't know if we do.
I guess I just think
Or
that
if you think there's some part of you that I see differently than you see, we can talk about that.
well, you think I project a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I don't think that's true. It's very central to my view of myself that I don't project a lot. It's very important to me that I think that I'm in touch with my feelings. I express my feelings, and I know a lot of what my feelings are, and that minimizes my projection.
Sure.
And
But
that
if
I'm
we
very
wanted-
empathetic, and so that I
Yeah, I
actually
understand
see
that.
other. Okay, so
Yeah,
do you
I
think?
understand that.
But do you
But
think
if I
that
wanted
we need to
if I
reconcile
wanted
it?
to, well, no, because I don't think it's that important for me to be close to you for my mental model to be 100% like your mental model. But for us to be close to each other, it is pretty important that we have a similar understanding of like, can I even be close to people, right? That's kind of central to the question of our closeness. Your mental model of whether you're actually empathetic or whether you project isn't really that important insofar as like having a close relationship, right?
I don't know. I feel like you're saying that it gets in the way of my being able to listen to you.
Well, it's going to inform what it's like to be in one, so your awareness of it and how you participate in the relationship is going to matter. If also, I guess there's value in just understanding how Mr. Girl sees himself in the relationship. I think this is not a good critique by Destiny.
Or be close to you if
Sure,
I
but we can still be friends
if all I
even if I
see
feel
is
like-
myself, but I think
Yeah.
I'm seeing you, but I'm just projecting, right?
Sure. But I don't think it like would axe everything. It's not like, oh fuck, we can't even be friends now because of that, right? I don't think so. Maybe
don't
at
thi-
some point, if
I
there
don't
was
think
like,
I don't think me thinking you're guarded axes everything either. For me.
well, but it does if you're trying to get closer to me and you're saying that I have a character defect or a characteristic that essentially prohibits that from ever happening, right?
I don't think I don't think it axes it. I just think it is like a barrier.
So yes, you just restated what I said, but for some reason you don't
Well,
want to.
axing implies that we can't have any relationship. I just think
No,
there's
that's not what I'm saying. Let's be charitable. I'm saying that for us to be really close, this particular character flaw or characteristic of mine would preclude that, right? If I don't
Yeah.
even really know how I feel and I'm guarded, yeah. So if we want to be close, we
Sure,
have
it
to
would
resolve
impede
this,
some
right?
kind of
We
growth
can
in
still
the
be friends. I'm
relationship.
not saying we're nothing, but I'm saying we want to be close friends. This would be something that we would have to resolve, right?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So earlier when you brought up
It's funny that not so weird.
The
I
thing
didn't seem
about
to get
you-
that and act that way. I don't know. I don't want to go
Or-
like too crazy on her. I'm not like super pissed. It's just so weird. I think it's so weird that that was how she responded. It bugs me.
when I feel like you project, right? So if we don't have to do this now, whatever you want, we don't have to. But like, if I'm saying you're projecting, I would give you a take that I disagree with of yours. I would say this is what you say, and this is what you say other people would say, and then I would either argue through polling data, through anecdote, or through conversation. This is not true. Therefore, I believe you are projecting, and now you need to give me a satisfactory answer to answer like the arguments that I've put forth. And I feel like I could have that conversation with you. But if we would have a conversation about my guardedness, it feels like there's no way to ever resolve that. That's my issue with your mental models for people. Is there's a fact of the matter about my mind state that can never be resolved.
Okay, so you don't think that you have a disagreement with me, not about individual instances, but literally about how I function psychologically. I think that I make space for other people and that I'm very empathetic, and that if anything, I am overly empathetic and let other people's an accurate picture of other people's psychological landscapes kind of fill my mind like too much. Your view, I think, is that I am a little unhinged, but
I just want to say I think that Mr. Grill is above average. I think he is quite empathetic. However, I think that there's like a key weakness in his empathy in that I don't think he knows how to successfully, at the very least in this space, take what he's able to empathize from people and then communicate that to them in a way that's going to result in effective communication. So I think he has his finger on the pulse pretty good, but then what he says as a result of it is seems like it's counterintuitive to the goal that he has when he goes to bring it up to them.
In a way that is like interesting or sometimes like adorable, but basically that I go through the world thinking I am seeing other people, but often I'm just seeing my own shadow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like even if I can convince you of, if I say, I think Reckful is feeling this in this session, and then later he says, you know, I was feeling that. I just didn't realize it 5 minutes ago. And then you're like, oh, I guess Max was right. I don't think that's going to change your view of like how I function.
No, hold on. Over time it would, right? Bayesian. If you were to constantly say things like this, and time again, it seems like a lot of the things you're saying, like, okay, yeah, I guess that person did think that. Or like, okay, yeah, that actually didn't. Then over time, I would start to update where it's like, okay, maybe Max isn't projecting as much as I think he is. Over one time, would I change my view completely? Of course not.
Okay.
But if it happened over and over again, then over time I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be more favorable. Like chances of him projecting are like, they were at 85%. Now they're down to like 75, 60 as time goes on, right?
Right. Okay. So you're asking me if is there a new constellation that could be drawn with more data where I just
The issue that I have is that conspiracy-wise, or if I were to call you a conspiracy theorist, one of the things that conspiracy theorists do, I'm not sure, I don't want to.
that you can draw any line through all
exactly,
of the
right? So like the deep state exists, and well, what if I can prove that it doesn't? Well, they control the schools. What if I prove the media
Yes.
doesn't? Well, they
Yeah,
control
I get
the media.
what
And
you're
it's
saying.
like, oh, fuck. Yeah,
And
okay.
so you're kind of saying
There are a few people that hate conspiracy theories as much
Like it
as
feels
Mr.
like I
Grill.
could show you a pattern of behavior where all of a sudden I message you one day and it's like, hey, like there's a girl and I feel this way, blah blah blah, and I thought you'd like to know, whatever. It feels like it's possible that you could say like, I think you're only telling me this because you want to convince me that you're being more emotionally available. I don't think you actually even care about my opinion. It feels like you could say that,
right.
and then I'm like, oh well, fuck me. Like there's literally nothing I can say otherwise to convince you.
Yeah, I think that it's an awful proposition that I'm saying I see you, and I see you in a way that you don't see yourself at all, and the only way we can be close friends is if you agree with me.
Yeah, which is kind of where we're at.
It's the only way we can be close friends in my definition of close friends, but that's
Yeah.
I don't think that's the same as your definition of close friends. So it might be that you think we're close, or we are close in one way and just not in this other way.
I guess, but like close friends is kind of a
Does anybody else think that this is nice to hear? It's like a breath of fresh air. You are all about some cosmology physics. I'm truly confused. Theoretical high energy physics was my first choice of university. It was my first choice too. I couldn't afford the school I wanted to go to, and then I just sort of let the dream die, I guess, but just sort of carried out I'd say pretty informal. I've read a lot of books, watched a lot of stuff. Like I just tried to educate myself, like as a kind of like a hobby, but like I probably characterize it more as just like a passion thing. I'm pretty passionate about physics for like a really long time. I probably have like I tried to go to Caltech, but the reality was I could never afford it. MIT I think was probably even more expensive then. But I really had my like heart set on Caltech. That's where Feynman went and taught, or that's where Feynman taught. Look, I don't know how to teach fucking Mr. Grill that black holes, or the universe isn't in a black hole. Okay, I can't answer that. Cool. I'm glad he was a teacher.
it's kind of a mutual thing. It's kind of weird if one person thinks you're close and the other person
I mean, I guess
doesn't.
I feel like
Right,
with Shaylin, I'm constantly discovering that what she thinks being in a relationship means, and what I think it means, are not the same. I feel like this is true.
But part of being in a relationship is assuming there's probably going to be some differences. But I'm saying that, like, if you found out tomorrow that, like, Shaylin, like, you catch Shaylin fucking another person, And she's like, oh, well, I didn't know we were exclusive. Well, now you're like, well, what the fuck? Were you even in a relationship ever at all? Because now, like, it's dramatically different, right? So there's going to be some boundaries that have to be set that in order for something to be anything, right? Otherwise,
I think
everything
part of,
would be everything and nothing would be nothing.
I don't need you to agree with what I think of you. It's more that I need you to be okay, not okay. I need you to know that I think it. To me, like that's
Yeah.
the biggest block of intimacy to me. Is when somebody can't stand what I think of them.
So if I said, you know what, Max, I understand that you think I'm super guarded and closed off and will never be open to you. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad you know that. I don't believe you.
I know, but that's because you're guarded and you think I'm trying to get something. You think I'm trying to get something from you or make you do something. And you every like a conspiracy theorist.
So like
Every
so you just
formulation
gave, yeah.
you have of being close with me is going to involve something terrible happening to you. But I don't. I guess I just don't. I don't agree.
So
with
you can say that, which basically your definitions of now, your arguments have become recursive, right? The reason why you say that is because you're guarded, and you're guarded because you're guarded. But I could give you a totally different answer about how what your motivations are.
Yeah,
I could
and
say, well, the reason why Max wants me to be more open is because he feels like there's going to be some like personal.
I think what Destiny's trying to get to is like a valid thing, but it's also not at all in contrast with what Mr. Girl's been saying to him.
Level inside of me that I don't let people access very often because I don't trust them. And by not giving Max access to that, I either don't trust him or I've got so much repression around trusting other people that I don't trust myself to trust other people. And that's always going to inhibit like our level of closeness. Right? I feel like I can explain your motivations and your feelings pretty well, but your explanation of my feelings is always going to be like, well, you're guarded because you're guarded because you're guarded.
Yours
Stop
isn't
being
I'm
guarded.
projecting because I'm projecting because I'm projecting.
No, I don't think so. I think if you feel like I didn't explain your emotional state at all there, you can tell me, well, no, you're totally wrong. But I think that if you ask me through any of our interactions to explain,
It's not
okay,
my
so
emotional.
like,
You understand my emotional state, but you disagree with me about how I function.
well, that's a separate conversation. I don't necessarily know if this is projection here or not. Like, I think sometimes you project onto people, but I don't
Well,
think
either
that
I'm
it's
right or I'm wrong.
It does.
I mean, or
About what?
or you
There's a
subscribe
truth
to my
of the
belief
matter.
that neither of us. Like again, like I'm not trying to. It's not that I think you are literally objectively guarded. I don't think that exists. It's just a way of.
No, hold on. Well,
it's a
yeah,
way
we can be more. Neither of us are dumb fucks here, right? You think that I probably subscribe unconsciously to a certain set of maladaptive behaviors that I've accrued over time because it protects me from getting hurt from other people. I'm not like, I'm not going to tell Max this particular thing, but it's more like I might have an uncomfortable thought and I get like a twinge when I think about sharing it with other people because I think that they're going to shoot me down and that's probably going to hurt. So I just avoid bringing it up. But I'm not even.
I don't
really
even
thinking
think you
about
get
it,
to
right?
the point of thinking about sharing it. I think.
Yeah,
I think
sure,
it's-
exactly. Yeah, but it's all like these are like a whole bunch of like maladaptive, we'll say subconscious processes.
Yeah, but the
that I might not
problem
even be
is-
aware that I went through. Yeah, sure.
The problem is that with the way your life is set up with streaming, I don't think it even is maladaptive now. I think you are correctly adapted to your current environment, but I
Well,
don't know.
we would say maladaptive because there's probably a world where I can appropriately be guarded in a public setting, but with certain people, such as yourself, I could be unguarded, right?
That
That's why we
would
say
be
it's
that would be
maladaptive.
nice, but it's real. I mean, I don't think the streaming stuff is very good for you. That's my experience of it.
Yeah, generally speaking, for most people, I probably agree. Not for me because I'm so guarded.
Yeah, but you're the exception. Yeah. So,
I don't like,
disagree with you
go ahead.
that being close with me means that I have to contort and compress you into either being or agreeing with what I see in you. I think
From my
that,
perspective, it doesn't. But for your perspective, I think you're always going to feel like there's like aspects of me that you're missing out on or not getting access to because I am consciously or not just kind of like hiding them because I'm a little bit worried about it. And that's going to be something that always, whether you admit it or not, and this will be where I'll make a mind read. And even if you disagree with me, I wouldn't believe you. But I would say that would be a little bit upsetting to you. Not so
this
much
is-
so that you wouldn't be my friend, but
okay,
you'd be
but
like, well,
this-
fuck, I wish that like Steven was more open about this particular
but can
thing.
I-
I think you would have that feeling. Go.
can I do a mind read here?
Sure.
That you
I think that's-
experience that kind of intimacy as
That feels
like,
accurate.
rape, and that you experience even the acknowledgement of a boundary or
Mm-hmm.
a guard as me being a vampire, thirsty for your blood, waiting for a drop in the armor or trying to rip it off of you, and that
Mm-hmm.
I will just be salivating with like the 1,000-year-old demon hunger, wanting
Mm-hmm.
to tear this away from you against your will, and that's And I don't think that's true. I think that's a very guarded way to think of
Sure.
it.
And now I can answer your mind read, and I would say you're wrong.
Yeah.
The reason why I would say that you're wrong is I would say that if you ask me any personal thought, I actually really like talking about myself. I don't know if that's a narcissistic trait or just because I'm a streamer. I enjoy talking myself, and I actually like talking about like personal thoughts that I have too. I think I'm a relatively unique person. I think it's kind of be interesting for other people to hear my thoughts, and sometimes it can be fun to share those thoughts. If you ever wanted to push on a topic, you'd be like, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or whatever. I would entertain almost any conversation you could think of. The only boundaries I typically draw are around like other people's personal stuff because I don't want to bring up other people that aren't there to defend themselves or talk about themselves. But I mean, I feel like I could respond to that pretty adequately. And then if you wanted to like test that, we could engage in certain conversations. This conversation right now is pretty personal. I have no problem talking with you about it publicly. I have no problem expressing like any
Personal,
feelings
and
about it publicly.
it feels pretty.
So I feel like I
think
can
it's
illustrate. Okay,
Do you
go.
think this would be harder for
That's one of the things that's nice about it, but it's also, I don't know if anybody in this would admit to it, but this conversation is also like fairly vulnerable as well, which I think makes it such an enjoyable conversation to see.
you to talk about privately? The chat.
No, I think
provides
it
a
would be. I
bit
think
of-
it would be a little. The chat provides me nothing. I don't ever. I know that. I don't understand. It might be weird to say that, but like I've dated people. I've associated with people that my chat fucking hates. Where it could be you. It could be Brittany.
I
could
think
be
it
Lauren,
provides a
could be
bit
Nick.
of a buffer, as does Kyla.
Sure. This would be something. This would be something that I would say is a projection because it doesn't. But I understand why you could think it would. It might for you, and you might think it does for other people. But
Have you guys ever talked privately off stream?
I think twice.
That's
Were
correct.
those conversations less warm, or what was your experience of them, Max?
I think they were pretty similar to this. This is actually probably more intimate than any of those conversations. I think those were like business related.
Sort of.
What more are you wanting from him? Would you like to see?
Well, I think the problem is he wants something that I don't agree exists, that he think exists, that I can't. Like he can't give
But I-
words to
and-
it
but-
because it's
but
like,
I-
But he
Again,
doesn't
don't-
want
I
it,
don't-
but he does want it. Like that's
I don't
the
think
issue.
that's
He doesn't.
I don't think it's a problem.
But it. Well, I'm not saying. Hold on. To be clear, when I'm saying it's a problem, again, I'll repeat this. I'm not saying that it's like prohibitive for us to ever talk to each other. This has to be resolved. But I'm saying there's always going to be like a feeling of disappointment in you that you think that there's some part of me that you're not getting access to. Do you think that's
But
a
I
fair summary?
still-
If I ever
still-
say something about your emotional state that you disagree with, you can always correct me. But that's a feeling that I have.
I still love you, even if you disappoint me.
That's not what we're talking about, right? A mother can
But
still
I'm
love
saying
a
it's
child. They're a
okay. It's
murderer, but
okay
they
for
prefer
me.
for them not to
But I'm
murder.
saying it's
right?
okay for me to be disappointed.
I don't disagree with you.
Well, so then, I guess I
But
just
what
it
we're,
seems
but
like the way
ideally
you.
in any relationship, we would want to like curtail the amount of disappointments, right? Like
I
it's
don't.
okay that I
don't think
disappoint
that's
my
true.
wife. in some
I
way.
guess I'm saying I'm trying to say that we don't. I don't think we need to do that. I think that.
Wait, then why are we talking about this at all if you have no desire to see me change?
Because I wanted to
whatsoever?
express it and talk about it, and like, yeah, I would like you to think about it, and I would like to think about it too. Yeah, sure, it's possible.
Yeah,
that
that's
I'll
what I'm
see,
saying. I'm not
that
saying
I'll see
I'm
more
not, I'm
data
not making
points,
the,
and then I'll start thinking of you just as an introvert rather than a guarded person.
Sure,
That's,
and I'm
that's
not
possible.
trying to make the I'm not trying to make the strong claim that like you're trying to change me or else you view it as a failure or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that you probably prefer if I could be a little bit less guarded or more open. I don't think that's that ridiculous to say. I think
No,
it's pretty
that's
accurate.
obviously true, but I just
Yeah.
I feel like that there's an implication that I can't be disappointed.
Sure, and neither of us agree that you would feel that way, right?
Pardon me.
Or I would tell you, I don't. Maybe you wouldn't agree with me.
Yeah, but I feel like, and this goes back to the Shaylin thing, where I think that might make you feel like you need to fix it if I'm disappointed, or that not that you need to,
Do you-
but you need to
well,
either
but
you
like-
either need to fix it or leave.
Well, think about me and what you know of me so far, just how I talk. Do I come across as the type of person that feels like I either have to people please or have to run from people because I don't 100% line up with their expectations of me? That doesn't sound like a very me thing, I don't think, right?
On the outside, that's not a you thing, but you could also see how that could be a developed way to protect yourself from feeling very much like that on the inside.
It could be, but now you're making
Brittany,
assumptions.
cookie lady.
It's a big mind read.
Well, but it's a mind read
big
based on,
leap.
Brittany Simon.
but it's based on no data, right?
It's
Like,
based on your
I don't think
stories. It's based on your stories about Melina and your interactions.
Erudite's
with
finally chilled out in this, which
My
is cool.
stories with Melina. What do you mean by that?
that you, when there is conflict,
Mhm.
When she gets really upset with you and you get upset, you either say something conciliatory to fix it and tamp down your feelings, or you leave until you are calmer and then come
Sure,
back.
but like,
Okay,
is it? I think there's for an
but if-
alternate read. Well, real quick, people can have different
Yeah,
ways
she
of
did
resolving
back off.
problems, right? I'll talk. I'm not running from these. I'm just like, when I get heated in the moment, I'm not in a good state to resolve issues. But I'm not like running from the feelings. I just need a moment to like cool off. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
but
like
there's a implication that it has to be resolved,
that one
Yeah.
has to be resolved.
the conflict or the feelings.
Well, for a relationship, I would imagine, like a marriage, right? We can't just walk around with unresolved tension all the time. It'd probably not be
I don't
healthy.
see that's, and I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's a kind of guarded view, is that I think it's inevitable that you're going to walk around with unresolved tension all the time. I don't think there's a way to escape that. And I think it's also true of a friendship. So
Wait, why do you think that?
because you can't fix everything.
Well, it's not about like
I don't even know if you can fix anything.
But
I
that
think
doesn't mean that you always have to be in tension with every interpersonal relationship.
Yeah,
I
there
think
could
it
just be-
does. This is why when people are like, "Oh my God, you have to break up with Shaylin," blah blah. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is just.
You think that's just because of
this
your
is just-
experiences,
this is
though?
just
Like you've had a
another
lot
thing.
of contentious relationships.
Do you think that maybe you're a moron who's projecting? No, I don't think that, Kyla. You think that. You think that. I don't
Right,
think
so
that.
I guess I'm giving you kind of that mind read feedback that I think I'm right.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you're
I
just
know.
projecting your
I
negative
know.
interpersonal relationships. And I'd
know.
like you to consider it because I think you're wrong.
And I would like you to consider that you're wrong, that I'm wrong. But in my view, it's inevitable that we will have unresolved tension in relationships and friendships and marriages. And so what I'm saying is, what I was saying before, that I think you have a pretty guarded view where if somebody's disappointed in you or upset, particularly a woman or me, that you want to either fix it by saying something conciliatory while biting your tongue, or leave until you are calm enough to come back and fix it by saying something conciliatory and not biting your tongue. And I feel like that informs what you're saying about me being disappointed in you, where you
I feel like
you feel
okay.
you don't want to just sit with that. Maybe I am disappointed, but maybe
I like
that's
these
okay.
I feel statements a
I'm
lot.
okay.
Do you
so we-
think objectively all interpersonal relationships are in a state of tension and like frustration and resentment? Like all human
Yes.
interpersonal relationships?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything that people could supply as evidence to counter your belief in that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess like if you like, you could convince me that I'm like mentally ill, I guess, and then I would be like, wow, I guess because you're asking me like, is there anything I can show you to convince you that everything you see is not real? And it's like, I guess like you could probably convince me that I have a serious mental illness, but
Like a
barring that,
blind spot, right?
it would be like
It's not the same. That's not what he's
more
saying.
than that, because this
It
is
would be
just
a really big blind spot, but it'd be
Yeah.
a blind spot, like a huge one.
it's unlikely that you can convince me of that. Yeah.
Right. But what if you're wrong?
Then I am a bad person because I'm convincing other people to see something that's not even there.
Okay, so one thing I don't know how to move you off of this. I wish I could move you off of this, okay? I'm not trying to pressure you or say that I feel pressured that we have to resolve something. You have very much fixated this idea in your mind that I am almost like stressed out right now because I feel like we have to resolve our tension. We have to resolve our... That's not what I'm saying.
I
All
know.
I've ever
You're
said
saying
here-
it precludes a certain amount.
yeah,
of
being like
closeness.
really close, and that it would be like you would be a lot happier if like this was a particular thing that I did have a better handle on. You'd be happier.
I'm saying that
That's an easy yes. Come on, you'd be happier.
This is going to be his argument to you on black holes. What?
If I was, I am almost like stressed out right now because I feel like we have to resolve our tension. We have to resolve our... That's not what I'm saying.
I
All
know.
I've ever
You're
said
saying
here-
it precludes a certain amount.
Yeah,
of
being like
closeness.
really close, and that it would be like you would be a lot happier if like this was a particular thing that I did have a better handle on. You'd be happier.
I'm saying
I would be a lot happier if
That-
black
That's an
holes was
easy
a
yes.
particular
Come
thing
on.
that
You'd
Mr.
be
Bill had a
happier if
better
I was
handle
like
on.
less
there's
guarded
an
around you. And you had...
implication that closeness with you and the
Mhm.
importance of our relationship to me is predicated on you making me happy or you not disappointing me, and that's not true.
I don't like the phrasing of making me happy because that's so vague that it's
There's
it
just
could
there's a
be always true or always...
transactionality. There's a transactionality to the way you are framing
And you'll have to convince him he's crazy because it's so obvious to him. um, it's gonna be tough because I don't know if you've seen my most recent Substack, but I went through like 7 different claims that he's made, and everybody who's read it has agreed that I have like this isn't a matter of opinion. I have proven these claims false. Like, I have provided evidence that shows that this is just not true. So, depending on the responses that he has to them, um, I might tell him he's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. Um, so I wrote 2 Substacks. One of them was probably not super great for like the general audience. And then the second one was very much with the general audience in mind. And so that I think I also put Mr. Girl in that camp as well. So he should be able to see. And he pushed back on stuff from the first one. He hasn't said shit about the second one. And I know he subscribed to my Substack, so we'll see.
Naming our friendship as like I have to get good feelings out of it for it to make sense that I want to be close to you.
Sure.
But that's not what
But
I want.
but that is what you want. If we're gonna
It's
talk about
not.
transactions,
But it's not. I'm telling you, it's not.
would you want to have a friendship with somebody who the majority of the feelings they gave you were bad feelings?
Yes.
Right, he is saying the conventional physics is wrong. However, he has to then contend with the observational material that I provided. Like this, we think that like this is what, because I disagree with some conventional physics, some things that physics like will conventionally contest, but I can also explain why rationally why I disagree with it. Like I can explain why I don't think that the Big Bang happened. Or at least that it's not like the kind of event that it's described to be. I can explain why I have faith in like a plasma cosmology model instead. Yeah, there are some pretty serious problems with like this current model that we have. And in order to solve it, they just sort of like make shit up to say that because like they feel justified in like making things up because they say, well, all these other things that we're assuming to be true, in order for them to be true, then we have to make up reasons why they're true. Things like weakly interacting massive particles, dark matter, dark energy, shit like that. But I think there's some things that have been discarded early on. And because of those things, like the ether in particular, I think that if we stop taking so many things for granted in the field, then a lot of other ideas become a lot more applicable to our observations. I agree with you. I went down the string theory rabbit hole in the early 2000s. I'm saying I don't think he'll accept it. Sure. It's funny, string theory. I like pretty much like I understand it, but I never dove too deep into it because it's so theoretical that it's kind of like I don't want to poison my mind with it. I'm almost afraid that if I went too deep into string theory, I might, especially if I'm like reading this information from people I respect, that I'm going to be too impressionable, basically. If I if some stronger claims come out of string theory, then I'll probably like super heavy dive into it. But until then, like I'm pretty comfortable with like the amount of information that I have about it, and just sort of like allowing myself to entertain the idea in certain instances, like where it would be necessary to get like a good grasp on it. Brian Green guy. I just can't. It's too much. And I've been the last couple days I've been trying to refresh myself because I've had physics on the back burner for the last couple of years because like after like the LHC and the stuff that came out after that, but even like before the LHC, well, I guess like right when they first turned it on was probably like within the first couple of years. I was super heavy into physics. Like I got past like my like prerequisite understandings and then I could like actually like engaged in like theory crafting and all that. So I was super excited about that, and then it broke. But like and then for a long time I was just sort of waiting for that. So like it's just been like over time gotten like less and less on the forefront for me, but it's always something like I still kind of engage in. Um but so this is kind of like rekindling my interest in the subject because I want to I want to prove if I can't convince him, that's fine. But I want to at least prove to everybody else that this is incorrect. Because the last thing I want to deal with is people parroting his ideas about the universe being in a black hole, and because I will feel the need to argue that. That'll make me really upset. Me too. I bought a Milligauss. I was so into the LHC. Oh, really? Um, this is gonna sound super stupid, but I swear to God, when it broke, like right after they turned it on, I cried. And they said it was gonna be like a year. I cried. I was so excited for it. Um, like I talked about the LHC turning on, the way that like the way I talked about Elden Ring, like it was like gonna be the greatest thing ever, and I had no idea it was gonna take that long for us to get information about it, from the readings, like. Well, we got some readings, like kind of like not that long, but like to be able to like really like get the data and like crunch it and to really like evaluate the data, and to run more experiments to where like we're kind of getting like a steady flow of like new information, or like some like actual like any kind of insights that allow us to go like, hey, we actually have like new stuff that we didn't have before, um, and now we're going to kind of evaluate it and look at it and try to think of what we think about it. That took a really long time. I'm going into mentions here. What do you think of Eric? Eric who? Sex. I spoke to Brittany last night. I think you're flat. Let's get some more. Yeah, that's really cool that you're invested in it. I just it's been, oh shit, like over 10 years since I've read them. So I just got A Brief History in Time and The Theory of Everything on audiobook. I'm gonna re-listen to those. I want to be pretty sharp when I talk to Mr. Girl. I don't want to use like kind of like loose language, just from like shitty memory, or make sure that I'm not like saying things in the way that I would say them with my buddy who is heavily invested in physics too. When I talk to him, I want to make sure that I'm coming off as somebody who actually like has the kind of like information and background and just like a hardcore nerd studying this stuff that I have. Like I'm actually pretty frustrated with Mr. Girl when I talk like, so like I've talked to him about talking about it, and he says like, I want to talk to like a real physicist about this so that way it doesn't look like two crazy people yelling at each other. Like I find that to be pretty offensive because I know what I'm talking about. Like, and there's very rare instances in my life where I can actually like have a conversation with somebody about any of this, because the guy that I used to spend like hours upon hours, sometimes every day for like an entire week on the phone talking about physics with, him and I aren't friends anymore, so I don't have anybody to talk to about it. And for him to sort of like discredit my understanding of the subject on its face like that is pretty frustrating to me, especially when he's saying the kinds of things that he's saying. Um, I don't know how to address it to him. There's a thing about what he's doing, where he's at, that I can't help but respect, because like he's older than me and I respect him a lot. So it feels really weird to say that he reminds me of me when I was in my late teens. Me and my buddy, we both got into physics like roughly at the same time. I think that like I got him interested like heavy, and he's just like the smartest person I've ever met in my life. I think he'd disagree with that, but he is. And so like we would both say things that were like super dumb, and it would take the other person to talk us out of it. Like my buddy was convinced for like 2 weeks or something, and I got furious. I was screamed at him that sound. He said there's no reason to think that sound doesn't move as fast as light, but we just don't have the equipment to detect it. I'm like, you're wrong. We do have equipment that can detect it, and it detects it. It's way fucking slower. Like, what's wrong with you? And I came at it from so many different angles. Like the most obvious one is just like you hear thunder, then you see lightning, or you see lightning and then you hear thunder. Sorry. But he's like, yeah, but like, how do we know that our ears aren't? I'm like, no, fuck you, shut up. That's not how this works. Like we've measured. There's a ton of ways, and I spent well over a week for sure arguing with him about it, and then finally he understood the obviously correct thing. So kind of like I get it. I understand like being super excited about physics. I'm super sympathetic to that, and also like having really bad ideas that you're kind of convinced of. But neither one of us were saying it to the world, or like to anybody who would listen like that. And I think also part of the reason why I'm so hot about it is because me and my buddy would get really hot with each other when we would have disagreements about physics. So it's just sort of how like I engage with it. Okay, physics rants over. I'll come back to the video.
How? Why? How? You can't say yes to this.
I think that's what love is.
Okay.
Wow, double forehead palm. Dang.
Well, it's just like it's such a vacuous statement that it's obviously not true in its face, because the way that this conversation is going to work if we go down it is you're going to define happiness and sadness in ways that I'm not, or you're going to define love in a way that I'm not, and then
Yes,
eventually
I'm
we're gonna
defining
end up
love in a
would
way
agree.
that you don't. I think
Yeah.
that if
So my
you,
question is, can
I
you give
don't
me an
think
example?
Why
What's,
don't you
what's
go
an
into
example of, like,
Steven's bubble and answer the way that he means love?
or actually, I'm just curious. Like, what can you give me an example of a relationship that the majority of the feelings are negative, but you're happy with that relationship?
Shaylin.
I'm sorry. Give me just 1 minute. I gotta go talk to my wife real quick. Oh, wrong one. Like a minute tops. Be right back. And I'm back. Nope. There we go.
Okay, why would you be with somebody if the majority of the feelings are negative?
Because I'm not with her to make myself happy.
Why are you
That's not-
with her?
I mean, life is mostly negative feelings. It's like
Why,
asking
okay,
why
no,
I don't
wait,
kill
wait,
myself.
wait.
Why am I with Shaylin? Because I love her.
Yeah.
I want to be with her.
By the way, please like the stream. That's all. Thank you.
That is that the intimacy.
Okay, what does it
and
mean when you? What does it mean when you love somebody? What does that mean to you?
I have a strong. I mean, I don't want to limit it by defining it, but I'll say that part of it is I just feel a strong pull to be with her. That is
Okay, and if
independent.
you had to
That is
describe-
independent of what she does for me or how she makes me feel. It's independent
So-
of those things.
Why do you love her and not every other person?
I don't know. I mean, I can
never
enumerate her.
reflected on that
I would if I knew she was never going to hear this, I could enumerate some of her qualities that I like, but that would be complimenting her, and I don't want to do
Sure.
that.
Those
she has-
qualities are things that affect your, starts with the letter F, E, E, L, I, N, G. They affect your feelings. That's how you feel about her.
At first, that's true. That's what attracted me to her. But
Sure.
now my attachment to her and love for her is pretty independent of what she does for me. She can make me feel nothing good for like weeks, and I'll still love her
Sure.
just as much
But
just
what
as
if
much
it
as
was-
I did.
What if it was the case that it happened for months or years? What if she changed completely, her personality and everything? She almost became a different person. Would you still feel love for her?
Stop
Yeah, I
doing
was gonna
art.
say she'd be a different person.
Yeah, I would still feel love. I mean, like that happened with my ex-wife. We got divorced. We
Okay,
had
what would happen if
irreconcilable
somebody-
differences,
Sure.
but I didn't stop loving her because we got divorced. I didn't stop loving her probably for a few years after we got divorced.
Okay, if somebody moved into your house and
Hmm.
called themselves Shaylin, and then she moved out, would you love that person that called themselves Shaylin? They even get the name change and everything.
Yes. No, I wouldn't. I'm attached
Okay.
to her specifically, not just her name.
Okay, but then why her? There has to be because of a way she
But the-
makes you
but do-
feel.
I know
Unless
that
you
you-
literally
I
are going
know-
to give me. Yeah,
Can
Go
I
ahead.
can I take you back to my bubble for a second?
let's go.
You have a view of relationships where people don't love you; they only love what you can do for them. I think
Correct.
I think that's guarded and kind of fucked up. And what I've been
Sure.
trying to explain to you
Mhm.
is that my affection for you and my attachment to you as a friend is not connected to what you do for me.
Gotcha. And what I would say is whatever you're describing in my worldview. Now, I wouldn't accuse you of this because I'm okay with you viewing things differently. Actually, I don't actually believe what you're saying, but that's a different topic. Okay. I would say that.
Well,
your
that's what I'm
view-
saying. I'm saying you don't
Sure,
believe
that's fine.
it.
That's
I know
fine.
you don't
But I would
believe
say.
Oh, does it need to pause that?
That your view is obsessive and insulting. Why would I want to be with somebody that doesn't care about me for any of my characteristics, for any of the things that I've worked for any of the happy moments or joyful moments or anything that I can provide for them, but instead they just have this weird, unhealthy, ethereal attachment to me for no reason. I don't believe relationships work that way. I think that we love the people that we
Okay.
love.
Um, just catching up on chat real quick. Hey, Saxon.
Because of the way that they
Um,
make
If somebody says,
us feel. And
"Hey,
things
don't talk about my kid," don't talk about their kid. That's a pretty fair boundary to
we
set.
do with them. That's where those types of feelings come
Yeah,
from.
and I think that you have not felt a lot of like love and acceptance in your life.
And you can say that, but you would
Yes.
utter that statement with no justification. But I could walk you through logic trees for everything I'm saying, and you more or less have already agreed with them that you love Shaylin because of the things that she's made you feel, which come after the actions that
But
she's
do you see
performed.
how it fits right into my guarded Stephen is guarded narrative?
Yeah,
if
it
you're
fits
telling
into
if you're
your
telling
thing
me
because-
if you're telling me that
Saxon, if I trust you that you're smart enough to know what I'm talking about, and if you're not, I trust that you're smart enough to scroll up and look.
loving you or loving Shaylin or loving people
Mhm.
independent of what they can do for me is a unhealthy fixation.
No, I understand, but it will only loop in a very recursive and unsatisfying way. But I think I can, like, through different logic paths, through different syllogism, I could prove everything I'm saying about your view in a way that you would satisfyingly be forced to agree with every single deductive line of truth I give you. You would be. We could do it if you want. But like because you're telling me because the very simple few questions I have to ask is why do you love Shaylin instead of somebody else? You're going to differentiate her, and those differentiations
Because we've built a relationship together.
No,
that's
stop. But yeah, but
No,
I'm
that's
gonna ask you,
actually why.
Why
Because
were you drawn
I'm
to her
gonna
originally?
I'm gonna ask you why you built it with her, not with anyone else. And at some point, and you can say, well, because we did this. At some point, you're gonna have to give me some
you
set of actions or characteristics
Look,
she had that make
Shaylin
you
is
feel a
not.
certain way.
Yeah, that. Okay, well, as long as if we're cool, then we're cool. No biggie.
Shaylin is not the number one best partner for me that I could ever
Never said
have.
she was. Super huge straw man. I don't believe in soulmates.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying you do. I'm saying let's acknowledge this. Shaylin is not the perfect partner for me. If I were to meet the perfect partner for me tomorrow, I would not leave Shaylin for that person.
Of course you wouldn't. Absolutely not. Of course not.
Right. So you're identifying love as a responsibility, right? That's one piece.
No.
I wouldn't even want to.
In your framework, you might. But all I would say is part of the characteristics that we have with other people is time spent together. And even if you meet a partner that is better matched for you in every way than Shaylin is, there's going to be some risk in taking on that relationship, and they're not going to have the same historical background that you have with Shaylin. So it's going to be a fundamentally different person.
Okay, but do you see how I would not frame that as just time spent together? I would frame that as like the bond.
Yeah, you would have
Okay,
another
well,
framing, but then you and I would argue it out. And
I don't know why. Oh, well, the reply ended up including talking about your kid, even if I was roundabout, like, I don't really need to hash this out. So I even the day to cool off.
by the end of it, you would agree with everything I'm saying, just in different words.
Well, let's argue it out. I'm saying
Sure.
that it's. I'm
You're
saying
saying that
it's
it's
not
about
just.
the
I'm not saying it's not.
bond that you've built with her, and I'm
Yeah.
going to ask, why have you built a bond with her? She's not your child, and you weren't force wed. So why did you choose to build a bond with her?
There were things I liked about her at first, and there were things I did like that she did for me at first. It is more
Okay.
transactional in the beginning of a relationship or a friendship.
Sure.
Just as with you, I mean, you gave me a fucking career. Like, there's nothing more transactional than that.
Sure. So then there are characteristics that you're attracted to with her. And you've built a relationship off of those initial things because of how she made you feel. Yeah.
Yes. But now,
But now
it doesn't. Now I'm saying that I am at a point with her and with you where you guys can both make me feel quite bad, and I will still love you.
Sure. And I guess at some point, I would argue that in your mind, you attach an unhealthy amount of value to time spent together. But at some point, I don't believe, I think that even you, if you were with somebody that 180, that genuinely started to treat you like shit for months and months and months and years, at some point you would be like, well, fuck, like this isn't the same person that I loved anymore. Like this ain't it.
Yeah, maybe, but I think before I got to that point, I would just set boundaries. I would say, like, I can't participate in certain
and you would set
conversations or in certain
boundaries,
ways, and I do set boundaries with Shaylin,
and you would set boundaries because you're trying to protect your feelings. You want them to make you feel a certain way. You want to.
Where do you go? Appreciate it. My kid has no online presence, and I did not make her part of my content. Anything about her out of your filthy mouth words. Tag me all you want. Where did he go? Saxon got timed out for a day. He was asked by Parallax to stop talking about his kid, and then I told him, "Hey, don't." And like in his response about it, he still roundabout referred to it, and like it's really, really, really hard to get any kind of like moderation in my Discord or in my YouTube. But if I ask you reasonably to stop, very, very rare. It's almost always going to be because somebody else asks you to stop, and I find this to be an extremely reasonable request. And if you're gonna try to like skirt around that, be like, well, technically, like, no, I don't care. People have every right to be sensitive when it comes to their kids, and it's just not. Of all the things, that's just not something that I endorse. Like, just stop. It's not cool. So yeah, he can come back tomorrow.
Limit the bad and still partake in the good, right?
Yes, and I will
Yeah.
set boundaries with you as well, but that doesn't
Sure.
mean
And it's unfortunate, though.
Again, it doesn't mean that my affection for you or for our relationship is because you make me feel good or
It
because
literally is conditional on good feelings. The whole point of a boundary is you set a boundary with somebody instead of cutting them off completely because you get something good from them, but you want to limit something bad from them. That's what a boundary is. A boundary is a semi-permeable barrier that lets the good in, but blocks the bad from coming in.
there's tons of things that you do and are doing right now that make me feel very bad that I'm not setting a boundary about.
That's just because you're bad at setting boundaries then. But it also,
Or
there's a
maybe it's
difference
because I love and accept you more and have more tolerance for your the parts of you that will make me feel bad than you expect.
But understand your
Yeah, I get it. Parallax.
perspective on relationships. It's wholly and unquestionably transactional, or like to what degree?
Okay, I
I'm
should
sure
have
you don't.
never, ever uttered this fucking word because people take this and they mean the worst possible things with it. Okay?
I am
When
being
I- when
actually
I-
very
when I
charitable,
say-
but I want to ask.
Sure. When I say things are transactional, I include a
Oh.
lot of things in that transaction. Part of that transaction is a person like making you feel a certain way. When people hear me say transactional, they think like your wife has to give you a certain number.
It's true that when somebody says that they view relationships transactionally, that people see this as like a big red flag. It's not inherently. I think that more people view relationships transactionally than they're either willing to admit or than they realize. I don't think that I do. It takes a lot to get me to break away from people, even if the relationship is like very like once I've been like committed. Like I have friends that I've put up with a whole mess of shit and not cut them off. But sometimes I'll take some space.
Of blowjobs or gifts or cook enough breakfast for you. But when I think of transactional, what I think of is that like if I have a private call with a friend, like part of the transaction of us communicating with each other is that they enjoy my company. I would hope they do, and I enjoy their company. Like we're transacting. In some ways, I'm providing some positive utility to their life. They're providing some positive utility to my life. Now, these are calculations that can run in medium and longer terms. It doesn't mean, so some people might naively say, oh, well, if you think it's transactional, then as soon as somebody's mean to you, you'll cut them off. Well, that's not true. There are plenty of people that you can have a bad experience with that overall provide you a lot of like good. This could be wives, it could be children, it could be husbands, it could be friends. Like, you know, it's not always 100% good, but over like periods of time, you do these calculations. And if they do turn bad, that's generally when we say like, this is a negative relationship, you should try to escape it, right?
Right. In like relation and talk, we would call that like there's always going to be a natural level of like tit for tat or like.
Yeah, and I understand the verbiage you're using, but I would be very careful in saying it for the same reason therapists would say you should be careful, is because when you get into keeping track of a tit for tat system, things can
Yes.
get very toxic very quick. But on the
Yes.
flip side of that, you should be running, and I would absolutely say this, you should have some mental gauge of a tit for tat because it is possible that you can become so selfish in a relationship you're losing track of things. So for instance, I'm not thinking of every single time Melina like cooks me breakfast or cleans the house or does something, but if she's doing a lot of things and I'm not doing anything, whether we think tit for tat is toxic or not, at some point resentment is
Nope.
going to build in the difference between our contribution to chores in the relationship,
Saxon, that's definitely not allowed. If you get timed out, you can't come back with another count. I'm sorry. No.
right?
Right.
wait a
And like
day.
I think one piece that's also in that you're kind of talking about is like over time,
I
like the
didn't even
level of
read it.
like exchange is different, right? Like when you've just met somebody, there's a little bit of like give and take of like obviously if you want to give with them, some of the give might just be it's nice, it's fun, right? But as your relationship deepens, there's going to be a little bit more that's expected for being given, but also you're also expected to give more, and then the trade-off isn't going to be just like, oh well, you're not giving to me anymore for like 2 weeks, so fuck.
I feel like the explanation that Not So Erudite gave of what a transactional relationship is not, or a transactional view of relationships is not how that is. I think she tried to bring it down to like a less abrasive version of what that is. Because I mean, like I pointed out, and I think doesn't necessarily need to be pointed out, that she's been fairly biased throughout this conversation, and not neutral as she claimed to be. But what was I saying? Yeah, I think that she just described just like how humans interact with each other. And if that was just if that's what we're gonna call transactional, then I don't know why we would even use a word to describe it. We'd just say a relationship.
You like that's
Yeah,
obviously not what
exactly.
it would be. Because if you've had 2 years, like people go through stuff, right? You've like built
course.
up that like oof,
One partner
currency,
might be going
social
through
currency
school.
essentially.
One partner
Yeah.
might get depression. One partner might have a phase. Yeah, there are things that can happen. Of
Exactly.
course.
But if this if maintains over time for like 7 years, where like there isn't a lot of give and take, people don't broadly enjoy being around each other. They're not really like loving on one another too much.
Yeah.
Reality is like that relationship is inevitably doomed to fail.
I would say, but so this is
See,
where I
this
would
is just
push
how
back
people
on. I know you're here. I'm not
view
trying to talk about you. You're
relationships.
not here. But this is why I would push back on views like Max's, because I would say views like this are how people wind up in toxic relationships for long periods of time.
I would agree.
Is that they think that like, yeah, like fuck, I made a commitment, I can never get.
No, I don't think that's what Mr. Grill's saying. Obviously, he doesn't think that if you make a commitment, you can't get out of it. Get divorced. But I think that what he's saying is that there's a certain level of what you are signing up for to put up with from the other person that's going to be things that you really don't like. And it's possible that he takes this to a higher extreme than would probably be recommended. I'm not sure. I have no strong feelings one way or the other, but that I think I might wonder that if the way that he views it is like well, if this person is willing to put up with me and deal with a bunch of dumb shit for me, then it's also on me. Like they've already paid that debt, then it's also on me to stick around when they're being a dumb fuck too. Because I don't want them to no, I'm saying that that's what I think that Mr. Girl thinks. I don't want them to leave me just because somebody better comes along. So part of the agreement in the relationship is that that's just not how we're going to treat this relationship. I think Destiny has a pretty nuanced and good understanding of what transactional relationships are, and I don't think the way that he's described it is something that's bad either.
Out of this, I gotta do this. Like, well, no, hold on. Like, there are points in your life where you can step back and evaluate. Do I feel like this is something that isn't benefiting me in the long run? And I feel like people are even scared of using that type of language because they feel selfish. But you should be selfish. It's your life. It's your relationships. It's ultimately your happiness. Unless you've made a commitment otherwise that you feel like you're committed to. So, like, either having a
I think the way that Destiny approaches it is honestly probably what's best for most people. So like I'm not saying like pridefully like well, I don't think that I view relationships transactionally. It's just I think that it might be something that's not that good for me, the way that I view my responsibilities in relationships.
child, or say you get married to somebody and they have like a degenerative disease and you feel a commitment there, right? At those levels, I can understand you might feel like you have a compulsion to follow some level of commitment. But if you're in a relationship that's just making you like sad and miserable all the time, I don't think you should feel a compulsion to stay there. I would argue that that's unhealthy. Yeah.
Right. These are like the non-negotiables. Like this is what I would communicate to people. It's like you have to figure out what your non-negotiables are, and if they appear in your relationship, you have to address them and draw a line and make it clear that it's a non-negotiable, and then they get to choose if that works for them, right?
Oh, her
But you
audio's
have to have
killing me.
non-negotiables because like things can't just work forever and just like grin and bear, resent each other, and like hate each other. Live two
Well, they
separate
can,
lives.
but those relationships suck. And then
Exactly,
when somebody dies,
exactly.
they're like, fuck me, I'm 65. Or those are the people who are like, and everybody's, I've done this, where people stay in a bad relationship for way too long. And then by the end of it, they're like, fuck, like I'm 34 now. I should have dumped this guy when I was like 26. Like, why did I waste 10 years here? Like this happens to people, right? Yeah. And it's, but, okay. Hi, Maxwell.
Okay.
Your name is actually Max, isn't it? It's not Maxwell, right? I feel like Max is a weird name, but okay. Or it's
Just
always
3
like Max
letters
and-
on your
Just
whole
3
birth
letters.
certificate. Wow.
Max Theo.
Yeah, very concise. Yeah, I asked you about transactionality in our like second or third conversation. I pointed out that I get money every time I talk to you, and you said you don't think about it. You said you never think about that, and to that meant
Sure. Let me. Okay. Wait. So sometimes we speak some things for shorthand. So let me elucidate. Let me expand on that, right? When I say I don't think about that, I don't mean that I'm so naive and stupid that it doesn't even cross my mind. When I say I don't think about it, what I mean is that like this isn't a thought that would influence an action I have.
I know.
That's what I mean. Okay, cool. Just making sure we know that, right? Because I don't want you to.
Yeah,
Like, oh, so
I
you're
know.
saying
I
you're
know
not
that
gonna
you're
bring a fact
aware of
into
it, but
Yeah,
you're
of
saying
course,
you don't
obviously.
think about it. But what that meant to me is that you were always thinking about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm always thinking about a lot of things, right?
But this is one of them, and this adds to my view of you as seeing relationships as transactional.
Okay.
And
If I
and
here's
now
a
you're saying I'm
question for-
mentally. You're saying you're implying I'm like mentally ill or unhinged if I love someone despite them making me feel mostly bad feelings. But I think
Wait.
that you have like a
we
immature
both
view of
disagree
what
with each other's approach
relationships
to
are.
relationships. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I think yours is bad. You probably think
No,
mine is bad. but-
I think yours is worse.
Yeah, of course you do. Which I would expect, because why would you think mine is better but still have yours and defend yours? Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question would be though, and this is where I ask for, I don't know if it's a respect of my character or just like like your assessment of my character. Like there are a lot of things that I keep in mind for our conversations. Do you think I would talk to you if I thought that your primary goal for talking to me was just to make money off of me?
Yes, I do. I don't think that Destiny would care.
How much would that influence my actions?
I think that it would only matter to Destiny. I think it'd be different with how he engages Mr. Girl specifically, but I think that Destiny doesn't give a shit what the other person's reason for talking to him is. It's just if it benefits him or not. I think that's the main thing that matters. And I think that's fine too. I'm not saying that in a
I mean, that was my
condemning
primary
way.
goal the first time we talked.
I answered so quickly that I don't want to come off as like saying like, and that's bad. No, I think it's fine.
Obviously,
What's the-
anybody, any small tiny creator who's like, "Can I talk to you on your huge platform?" Their primary goal is professional. And I'm
Sure,
sure.
but do you think that I think that if I did think that your only reason for talking to me now was to just like enrich yourself off of me, do you think that I would continue to engage with you in the way that I do?
You talk to some people who I think you must think. I think their only goal is to enrich themselves, and you still talk to them. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
Probably not me.
Mhm.
No, I think if
Yeah,
I did,
sure,
if
that's
I
cool.
if I were doing that,
Yeah.
probably not. No.
Okay, yeah. So then, who cares? Or why let the subtext, right? Like imagine in your world, or fuck, I already know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, oh well, I would think of this. In your world, every single pretty girl would always think that every guy she was talking to never wanted to be friends with her ever. They all just wanted to fuck her, and so she could never even truly have a friendship with a guy because she'd be worried every single guy only wants that.
Shave your head.
Listen, have you seen Sigourney Weaver?
I
Aliens.
have.
Aliens. Have you seen?
He said, I have.
Girl in V for Vendetta. What was her name?
Natalie Portman.
Nicole.
Oh,
Natalie Portman.
God.
So, girls
I've
should be
seen
hot
it.
with shaved
I've seen
heads.
it all.
No, that's
thought
not good.
about
When he shaved her head, he uglified the fuck out of her. She's still really cool though.
Licking those scalps.
But I was
I
upset by it.
I guess
I don't mind you having those thoughts. I think it's good to have them. I think if you don't, you become naive, and then you blind yourself to ways you could potentially get super fucked over. Just don't let I would say don't let those thoughts like dominate and take over, or otherwise ruin. Because now I would argue that in a weird way, you're kind of being the guarded one by having that thought in your head. It might be the case. So here are some facts that I'll say. Anytime you message me, and this has been the case, I will always talk to you. You or erudite. I think you're both interesting people. Anything you message me. I think in my head, right? I think in my head, I think that you probably would talk to me more, but you're worried about how it would come off, or you would pursue a conversation more. But when I say things like, oh, okay, well, anything else? In your mind, you're thinking like, fuck, he wants me to leave. So I think that you've actually been guarded in a way that has precluded future conversations where I would have gladly had the conversations, but you're so worried about coming off a certain way, you're thinking about certain things that it's prohibiting you from engaging.
it's not just about coming off a certain way. It's about actually hurting you.
Sure, but I'm telling you that I don't
I think the part that Mr. Girl didn't reject there, I think that's pretty valid. I think that they would have had a lot more streams together if Mr. Girl didn't feel the way that Destiny just said. Because he's so aware of the dynamics at play that I think
That would
that's
happen.
probably true.
But if somebody came to you, if a
But
third
that
party,
Mr. Girl's aware. is what I'm referencing, not Destiny. Not that I think Destiny's. I'm just yeah, you get
Came
it.
to you and they were like,
You get it.
this girl says that she doesn't mind if I do a certain thing, but I'm so worried that if I do a certain thing, it's like it's gonna come off a certain way, and like I'm not even talking to her now. Like, what would you tell that person? That they're being guarded, or well, that's an okay thought to have.
I think it just depends on how she said it. I mean, like, again, you saw me with Shaylin in the doll conversation. She said yes, but I didn't believe her. And so you're saying yes, but I feel like
Just a real quick pause to once again kindly ask, please like the stream. It's totally free. I ain't asking for money. I'm just asking you to click the button. That's it. My understanding is that it helps.
this is part
I
of
appreciate
my
it.
inner conflict with you, is I feel like every time I feel like if I reach out to you, if it seems like I think you feel a little put upon. Not
Do you
professionally.
really though? Do I really feel that way? Do you really think I feel that way?
I really
like-
think that you feel a bit put upon whenever anybody messages you about anything for any reason. Yes.
Hey,
People
it's
ask me
reasonable
to ask you for favors
to
all
think
the time.
that.
They're like,
Sure.
see if Destiny will connect you with blah blah blah.
Yep.
Or get-
Because
or
you know
ask
what?
him-
Because you're right. You're not autistic. You are correct. That is a true read. There are sometimes where like, I don't know if I want to take this person, blah 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 blah. But like, for
How
me,
nice he
and
said
this
he's
is what
not
I
autistic.
like. My mental models of other people is so important for me. Is I try to judge them by actions. Like I might think you believe a certain thing, but like, what do you actually do? That's how I update my priors, right? In terms of how I feel about a person.
Isn't
And
part
when
of-
you when you reached out to me, every single time, I think I've been ultra receptive. And I think it might actually be the case at this point that I think I might have reached out to you more for conversations than you've reached out to me. I think we might actually be at that point because there have been at least 2 or 3 videos you've done where I'm like, do you want to come on and chat about this?
Shit.
Um,
I remember when this aired, I knew what the metric was there.
So
I don't remember anymore.
So you have a mental idea of how I feel about you approaching me, but if you look at my actions in reality, they're totally incongruent.
But, I
unless
mean,
you want
I
to do like
also
some
think we
mind
should
prison
give
stuff where you're
me-
like, yeah, go
You
ahead.
should give me a little credit here, where it might also be that I've earned that by being thoughtful.
Well, hold on. I would say that though. You're speaking for me. I don't know if you actually believe that. I don't know if you think you have earned that because I think you're still worried about it. I do think you have. That's why if you message me for a conversation, I'll probably always chat with you. Yeah, whatever the fuck random shit you message me. Like, okay, yeah, let's hop on and chat or whatever. Or we can chat offline. I do believe that. Now, you just stated that, which is really interesting because it feels like you were trying to give me a logical answer to why a thing might be the way that it is, but it doesn't feel like, now I'm making a mind read here, so you can tell me if I'm totally off, but it doesn't feel like you actually believe that. It doesn't feel like you think, like if you, in your deepest feelings, do you feel like, have I earned the right to like message this guy whenever I want and he like always just on to me and it's chill? I don't feel like you feel that way.
I don't think I've earned a right to message you whenever I want. I think I've earned a sense from you that I am being thoughtful when I message you. I think that by being thoughtful when I message you, if you get a message from me, you assume that it's probably for a good reason, and that.
Yeah, but that sounds even more guarded. Now it sounds like you're using like that or what I've said, you're using like this hyper transactional lens of like, I can only message him when I feel like I'm going to provide like an interesting enough conversation for it to be worthwhile.
I
Doesn't
think
that seem a little
Destiny's
guarded, or does it
actually
feel a
on
little
something
guarded?
there.
Yeah, it might be. I experience it as being, especially now that it's happening to me. I have people being like, oh, you should talk to this person, and then I'll look at that, and I'm like, oh, this person's just your friend. I'm like, I can't trust anything anybody says to me anymore. I have no idea who is my friend or who is using me or blah blah. It's weird, and you never know why anybody is trying to talk to you, and you're, 50 times bigger, so, or more, 100 times, 1,000 times. So, yeah, and then that combined with my sense that you have this like kind of heartbreakingly pessimistic transactional view of relationships, yeah, it does make me want to be careful. And yeah, part of that is selfish, I guess. And is maybe guarded, because I can't stand the idea of I don't like making you feel violated, which I feel like you feel whenever anybody says they want something from you, and then also used or professionally.
Sure.
taken
So
advantage of.
everything you're saying is true and valid, not in just the sense that like, oh, your feelings are valid, but then like, I think your rationale is pretty sound. I'm not even going to fight you on any of it. But like to back up for a little bit and having like kind of a meta conversation. So
Meta.
the initial reason why I think you and most people, almost all people, don't like it when people are guarded is because there might be fruitful interactions that you could have, but a person's like own barriers are preventing it from happening. And you see where I'm going, right? Now I'm going to say I think it's interesting because it feels like
This is shades of NPD. It's NPD. Do you mean BPD? I don't know what you mean. I'm confused. NPD. Oh, wait, I do know. Never mind. Mr. Grill or Destiny? Like that's generally a thing that's gonna target Mr. Grill, but I don't know for sure what you mean.
remember I said this idea that I feel like you project onto other people sometimes? I feel like what you just laid out is a really good justification for why you're guarded around me. Because there are other conversations that it feels like we could have
Mr.
either
Girl.
pursued further or had, but we hadn't because you're really worried about the way that I view the world and how it'll come out.
Yeah.
And now so it feels like the
For me, it just feels like regular insecurity. So yeah, like you've never. I think the stuff that Mr. Grill's saying is a reflection of how he thinks of himself, rather than an actual reflection of how he thinks of Destiny. So like the problem isn't that Destiny. Part of it is that Destiny's like big and important and all that, and then it turns back to him. It's like and then like who the fuck am I to like think that I'm worth the time and stuff. That's how I take that.
guarded thing is there on your
But I understand
end,
where
and
you're coming
that
from.
was maybe a little bit projected onto me, is kind of what it feels like. But I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
or I'm right, or but we're both right, and it's just like a mess. But I
Like if people say stuff
or
like that, I
my-
understand
my
where they're
form
coming
of-
not a
from.
mess,
my
but just
form of-
complicated.
Sure, but I will say, not to be too argumentative, but like your form of being correct is that I'm either engaging in a ton of self-deception and I'm always guarded about being guarded about being guarded. But I feel like for your level of being guarded, I feel like we've had a good conversation. We've logically laid out the points to where you feel guarded.
Wait, is his
Like-
internet?
Oh,
Your
that
internet's
caught me off guard.
You're frozen.
popping up.
Oh, there we go.
You're back.
Wait,
Kind
am
of.
I okay? Yeah, okay. I feel like all of the arguments that I've laid out from start to finish are like pretty reasonable, that like you feel a certain way because of things that I've said, things that you said, and then ways that you feel about the world and view the world, and then that's led you to not taking actions. And none of this is mysterious, right? You have
Hey,
access to
Budgie.
all of these thoughts. I only know them not because I read your mind, but because you're telling them, you're sharing these thoughts with me.
I guess
And
I
feel
think
like
the thing you're pointing out that I'm also protecting myself, and I think you're also telling me that at a certain point, as we become better friends, it becomes a block.
I think Mr. Real has a much stronger ego than that. Sometimes, like, when people have really big egos, it's not always something that, like, holds up in all situations, though. Like, you can be really egotistical and insecure. Sometimes, I'm pretty convinced that sometimes when people have, like, really big egos, it's because, it's like their ego's compensating for it to like help them I put this it's to like combat that like insecurity. But like I don't know, that's just my read on it. Like I don't feel as strongly about that as I do about like a lot of other stuff that I say like with a lot more conviction. That's just my read.
Block
I
to our
don't-
friendship if I'm too.
If there's one thing I can say is that about Mr. Girl is that there are times where he does surprise me and make me rethink some of the things that I have thought about him before.
Careful with you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think there's a tinge of like meta irony that it feels like, and this isn't supposed to be like a gotcha, or I'm like trying to mind.
No, I
focus
think
on
you're
it, but,
right.
Like,
I don't think it-
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
feels
I
like
don't
at the
think
end
it's
of the
a
day, the guarded person here is probably you. It feels like it a little bit.
Well, I think that last part isn't true, but I think that I don't think
but-
it's mutually exclusive. But I agree with
Yeah, it
you.
doesn't have
that-
to be mutually exclusive, but I won't let you get away from that. You are guarded because there are things that you could have done where we could have had more interactions, but you didn't because you were worried about how I would respond to them. That's the definition of guarded, right?
That's true, and then I think there's another part about not. I don't always want to be the person who reaches out.
Sure.
Um,
Although I think I've, at least recently, for sure recently.
Recently,
I think
yes,
I'm
yes.
almost always
Recently,
the one that reaches out. Yeah,
yeah,
so
that's true. So yeah, I agree with you that I'm guarded, and I think it's good feedback. I think you're right.
I love you.
I think there is
wanna-
something self-protective in my the whole way I'm framing this,
Maybe a little bit, sure.
but it's easy. It's easier for me to acknowledge the ways in which I'm trying to protect you than my.
I mean to say, I doubt he's expressing literal imposter syndrome. He might actually be trying to fake it to manipulate people around him. I don't think that at all. But I also don't think it's imposter syndrome. I think it's how he feels insecure, specifically in his relationship with Destiny. I think that he feels like he belongs in this space, and like, I think he does belong in this space still. Although it might be less fun for him now. Certainly, like, his reputation hasn't gone the best and all that, but that's not really what I'm aiming at here. Anyways, I think that it's specifically to do with Destiny. I think that he feels insecure about that because at this point in their relationship, he has like so much love and respect for Destiny. I just think that he doesn't want to step over a line and cause problems with Destiny. I think that if at this point, if Destiny got like really mad at it or something, it would like really hurt his feelings. So I think he's scared of like having that happen.
myself.
That's all.
That's true.
Sure, because I think
Maybe that makes more
what-
sense.
What is? I'm
Maybe I
curious.
should have said that way to
What does
begin with.
projection mean to you? Give me your explanation of projection, and then I'll tell you what I think projection is.
I think projection is when you either think somebody else is feeling something you're secretly feeling, or you think they're feeling or doing something that you have a distorted view of it to make it fit what you're secretly feeling, secret from yourself,
Secret from yourself.
unconsciously feeling.
Okay, gotcha. You might agree with this. So I would phrase this a little bit differently, right? Let's say somebody were to go online, okay? And let's say somebody posts a picture of them hugging like a girl, hugging like their daughter, okay? And it's like a 9-year-old. And let's say you tweeted out like, I saw the way that you were touching her side, and I know that like when you squeeze your fingers there, you're just thinking of her soft and supple flesh. I know you're doing that.
That's so weird. I don't like that.
When you would like read a sentence like that, what you're thinking is like, that sounds like some projection.
That sounds like projection.
But
yeah.
why? Why is it projection? And I think the reason why it's projection is because it feels like that person isn't like consciously trying to fuck somebody else over. They're not like trying to do some weird mind games. I think that what it is when there are things about ourselves that we're intimately familiar with, we tend to see those sometimes incorrectly in other people. And I think that's what projection is. I think projection is that I see you do a behavior. I do a similar behavior, but I'm going to ascribe all of my motivations for that behavior to you because I'm seeing that thing that I know exists in myself. So when I would talk about projection, I don't think I would say this.
I said it earlier too, but I'll say it again because there's more people here. I think that I guess let me preface this too by saying I think that projection is like extremely normal. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think you should be aware of it, but most of the time we're going to like necessarily be blinded by it. That's why we're projecting anyways. But I think that Mr. Girl does project. I think that there's a lot of times that I see people accuse him of projecting that I outright disagree with. But there's a lot of times where I think that he is projecting and he just has like he can't believe it because he just doesn't see it. So it'd just be like genuine projection then, like for like most people, how they would project the same. But I think I do still disagree with other people in certain instances because I've seen him get accused of projecting, like when he just says something that people don't like. And I don't know if they just don't understand the word or if it's just like tied with their anger or if they're just like straight up misunderstanding the situation. But I will say that I would say that neither the general audience nor Mr. Girl agrees with when and how often he is projecting.
Necessarily anything subconscious or unknowable or unknown. I would just say that like he's doing a behavior and I do a behavior that's kind of like that. Now I'm going to take all of my motivations and all of my reasons for doing that, and I'm going to say that he has all of those things too. So I think that what that can lead to is like you might see me not talk to people much, and you personally might not talk to people much. And when you see me not talk to people much, you're like, oh,
He's just
he's
like
not doing that.
me.
I don't do that. And here are all the reasons that I do that. And I'm going to tack that on to him. And then I think that's what I would define as projection. I think that's where most projection comes from.
I think that makes sense. I think the only thing I'd add is that I think empathy is kind of like projection, except accurate. Where you're saying if I were doing that,
It's the thing that makes empathy different than projection isn't the accuracy. It's kind of like empathy in that you are taking something from inside yourself, like your estimation of what's going on with them, and then you are assigning it to them. That's the only thing that's similar. But empathy is where like it doesn't have to be. There's nothing that necessarily says it has to be something that's like about you or that you've experienced. You could have just seen it enough in other people.
this is how I'd be feeling, but you're actually right. And I think projection is definitionally like you're not right.
But I don't think so either. I think you can project and also still
Potentially.
have
Like
to
If
be
you
right.
say, if you tell me I'm projecting,
I think if you're projecting, whether you're right or wrong about the thing doesn't matter. It has to do with the truth of the matter. If you're only doing it because it's something that you are thinking because it's something that you do. Like if you're basically assigning you-ness to them, that's projecting. But you could also be right. They could be that similar to you to where that's the same. Right or wrong doesn't necessitate projection or not. That's goofy to me.
you're not saying I'm accurately projecting. You're saying I'm putting something on you that doesn't fit.
Yeah, I think generally when we say you're projecting, so for instance, like if somebody's stomach is growling and I'm like, oh, I bet you're hungry. Like technically that's projecting, but nobody would really say that because like it's probably true.
I don't think
right?
it's projecting.
Yeah, that's generally true. I think we say somebody's projecting, they're wrong. So here's something that I'll ask you about, and I'm never
Like, even though that lines up with what I just said, like that's not projecting. That's just like understanding what stomach grumbling usually means.
trying to make you change your definitions. I'm just curious because we seem to define some of these differently. Can you define for me again? What do you mean when you say empathy?
The ability to understand and know the feelings of another.
Empathy is when you imagine what somebody else is. When you imagine how somebody else feels about something. I think empathy, it does matter if you're right or not. If you're right, then you are empathizing with the person. If you're wrong, then you are attempting to empathize with the person and probably failing.
Gotcha. So earlier, and especially if you're doing like psychoanalytic things, and I could be wrong because I know fuck all about philosophy, or I'm sorry, psychology. I think that psychoanalysis and Freudian stuff, psychodynamic stuff, I think isn't the general theory or model of mind that there is subconscious stuff that you have that you might not have direct access through, but through conversation, I can kind of start to pull that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So because I'm a dumb fuck or whatever, I don't like that model of the mind. When I feel like people are being empathetic, my definition of empathy is just that, like, if you have a certain feeling, I know why you're feeling it. I can intellectualize it at least, if not emotionally understand it. So, like, I would consider empathy to be like, Max is upset over something. Well, why is Max mad? Max is mad because he's a fucking moron. Well, that's not very empathetic. That doesn't mean anything, right? But if I can say, well, Max is upset because I said this and that, and these things make him feel this way. So now he's upset because I've said these things. I would consider that to be somebody that is like, oh, you're pretty empathetic. You have an understanding of their feelings. The only reason why I prefer I prefer all my definitions to yours because we obviously prefer our definitions to each other. But I feel like it's weird if you're being empathetic is good because I think that understanding people's feelings are good. But if we define empathy as like reading somebody's subconscious, I think that gets a little scary because now like we all want to be good. In our minds, we write narratives that we're good always, unless we're like sociopaths or ASPD or whatever, right? But if your mental model of you being good requires you to be making like really big psychological reads of people's mind states that they might not even know because it's subconscious, I think that gets into scary states. Because you might make an incorrect read and be stuck there, or very hard to move you off of it. And
he's criticizing Mr. Bill's take from earlier.
That mental read that may or may not be true.
What he
and
said
I think sometimes
earlier.
it can preclude you from seeing somebody's actual emotional state, which would give you greater understanding, and then let you interact with them in a better way that furthers both of your relationship in a healthy way. Just for how I view it, obviously. But
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the more of a leap you're taking when empathizing, the more risk there is. I think that makes sense. But
Yeah, I just saw that a bunch of you guys did like the stream. I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate it.
I think it's inevitable. I think that in a projection is also inevitable. I think there's no way to know. There's no way to ever know if you,
Yeah,
even if you're
100%. You
empathizing
can't,
with
obviously,
somebody,
right?
even if somebody says they're feeling something and you empathize with it, we don't always know what we're feeling, or we often don't know what we're feeling. We think we're feeling things that we're not, or we don't understand why we're feeling, or we're feeling something close to that.
Mhm.
So
The only reason I guess I fight against the subconscious thing, and I could be standing like in the field of a lot of psychology, so I could be totally fucking wrong. But so I said earlier, like I don't believe in repression.
Yeah.
I think that most people, or all people, save for injuries or drug use, have access to all of their thoughts. Like I think that like if I truly ask like why are you upset, I don't believe that like we block that
That's projection.
out so hard that we can't even remember it. One, because that doesn't fit with like my Evo psych view of how people develop, and two, because I honestly can't even conceive of that, save
See?
for a drug or an injury. But like, yeah, so this is why I like to assume that most people have access to all of their thoughts, with the exception of some things. Like I would call this in a very woo-woo way, in a very Britney way. I would call there might be a vibe or a mood that you're not 100% aware of. So this might be something like being tired or being hungry. These are things that might influence your thoughts you're not aware of. But at some point, I can bring in awareness about these things. I don't know if the psychodynamic model gives you full access to your subconscious. I don't remember if that is the case. I think it doesn't. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So in the way I'm talking about it, the model of the unconscious and the conscious, I think the mechanisms by which I believe those actually function are more like not that you have thoughts that you can't access, because that doesn't really make sense. I feel like if we define a thought as like a actual conscious thought, I feel like that makes sense. But more like a belief that ties together all your thoughts that you're not aware of.
Or beliefs.
So you can have a bunch of thoughts that seem unrelated. Like if like when I said earlier, I think you have a belief that people are vampires and are trying to use you when they're being intimate, and that they're not going to respect you.
Yeah, Mr. Girl's describing a core belief now. It's sort of like an underlying foundational idea that anything that you think must necessarily be built on top of it. And you can't believe anything that would contradict that. Even if it's proven to you, like you'll reject something because it doesn't align. You'll find a fault with like the methodology, or like with the proof. You'll find some way to rationalize it because it's a core belief. That's what he's talking about.
Your boundaries, they're going to try to take shit from you. That you can see that you have a lot of. I don't think you have ever said that, but you've said a lot of things that, to me, like if you had like a bouquet of thoughts, they would all kind of like lead back to that. Like
Sure.
belief.
You might be able to connect thoughts in a way where somebody's like, I don't know why, but I'm always nervous when I drive to the store. I'm
Yes.
always fucking nervous when this happens. And at some point you might say like, hey, like how is your car? And you're like, well, the brakes are like super squishy and I've gotten in a couple accidents when it's like, maybe you're not nervous going to these places. Maybe you're just nervous like driving your vehicle.
Exactly.
And they're like, yeah, sure. In that way, sure.
And so
yeah, I can
and
agree that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you say that, it's not literally that they actually have that belief somewhere tucked away in a box.
It's
that
like
you
a
have to-
relational thing, not like a hidden fact of their mind thing. Right.
Yeah, it's just a lens. It's like a constellation. It's like you're saying, what if we take all these dots and we draw a different picture? And if I draw the picture, it like resonates with you much more and explains a lot more of not just of how you feel and helps you connect to those feelings, but also helps you figure out what you need to do about those feelings if you're trying to figure it out.
Sure.
And then I do think that also, as far as like emotions being physical sensations
Yeah.
that you can be aware of, or like mental sensations, that you can tune them out and not be aware of them, or misplace them or misinterpret them. And I think that if you can look at somebody else's body,
That what he just said there, I think a lot of people don't really like. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize it because it's not. I never hear it talked about. Nobody ever talked to me about it. But my therapist told me that emotions are physical sensations that you have in your body. I was very shocked until it started getting pointed out to me by my therapist to like pay attention to how I physically felt when I was having emotions. That shit fucking blew my mind.
Body language and
That's
find out. You
100%
can,
true.
you can guess that they are tired. Like with
Or I don't know, maybe everybody else knows that, and I'm just saying something super obvious and saying that it blew my mind. But
babies, this happens all the time.
I don't
but,
know.
like,
I don't
with
know.
Kids, like you can tell when kids are tired, but they don't know they're tired. And
They
you
have
to-
vibes that they don't. Yeah, 100%. A kid will. Yeah, I know.
right, and you have to inform them that they're tired, and then convince them to like
And fight with them.
see what happens. Just like, okay, lie down for 5 minutes and see what happens, and
Yeah.
then they go sleep for 10 hours.
Yeah, this is every parent has done this where it's like, okay, I've done this time and time. Like, listen, if you don't think you're tired, that's fine. Lay down for 5 minutes. If you're still awake, you can stay awake all night. Like every parent has made that deal with their kid a million times, and they lay down for 5 minutes, and they're asleep in like 2 minutes. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that works also with adults with all kinds of emotions of sensing that somebody else is sad or angry or whatever. And and anytime you're doing that, I agree with you. There's a risk, especially if you do it a lot, like I do, and say you're doing it a lot. There's a risk that you're wrong. And when you're wrong, you're not being empathetic. You're being the opposite of empathetic. You're making the other person invisible, especially when the read you have contradicts
Hey,
what they're saying about
don't mess
themselves.
with my life,
Then
Michael.
you're taking even more huge risk. You're either
Cat's
being
fuggling my life.
incredibly empathetic. You're saying, I am willing to stand in the face of you telling me that I'm wrong, and I'm willing to deal with all the conflict and anger about that's going to arise, and I'm still telling you I think you're feeling this. You're either being like at your most empathetic or your least.
I also think that I've seen people like contest like why anybody would even do that, why anybody would try to like verbalize something empathetic, like how Mr. Girl's describing it, because of like that risk. But like I think that I've seen it for myself and I've experienced it myself that sometimes it can help somebody understand their feelings if somebody points out how they think that they're feeling. I think that our feelings can be really tough and complicated and hard to figure out. But all it takes sometimes is for somebody to just say like, hey, I think maybe you're feeling like this, and then it all just sort of clicks and it's very helpful. So there's a lot of utility
Would
to it
you
too.
would you say, Max, that when you kind of engage in, you often discern very accurately what people are feeling? Like you're right a lot of the time?
I think I am right a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what I suspect, that you're pretty intuitive in reading people. I think that the trade-off that you get when you're right a lot of the time is that when you're wrong, it's way harder to know it because you've kind of like got all this evidence of being right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why I'm careful to couch it in terms of being a lens or a constellation, because you can't be wrong about a constellation in the stars. It's more just like being wrong means you drew something that just doesn't resonate with the other person. It doesn't actually explain anything. It's not going to bear anything out, and it's not going to lead to any like productive action on their part. It just doesn't.
Oh shit.
It's
I guess I didn't say this, and I probably should have. Whether you're empathetic or not, whether you're empathizing or not, does depend on if you're right, but it doesn't depend on the other person thinking that you're right. But you knowing that you're being empathetic does, but they could think you're wrong and you could still be right.
it's functionless and doesn't describe
it's probably
anything
not
except something that
Super
you
good to
yourself
act
think
like you're
or
right
feel.
if they don't.
I think that's projection. But yeah, I
Right.
think, yes, I get a lot of feedback that I'm right, and that makes me more sure that I'm right, which makes me take more risks.
And then probably because of that, you've also been right when people have said you're wrong, and then like a
Yeah.
week to a couple months later, they're like, "Holy shit, you were right." Have you also gotten that feedback?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I suspected based on like your certainty of some of these like evaluations of other people.
Yep, 100%. And I've had this exact same thing happen too, but initially I thought it was like a cool, like, oh yeah, mind reading shit. But then I realized later on that like, fuck, when I'm right, which is pretty often, I'm pretty right. But
Ooh.
when I'm wrong, I'm really wrong, like destructively so. And I have to be careful because now I'm not sure. There are times where I might have been wrong, and I actually didn't realize, but I was so strong in my convictions that I either mindfucked the other person into thinking I was right,
Yes.
or yeah, which is an issue, especially because I have a strong personality, so I can do that.
Yes.
Or I was just right, and they were wrong, or I'm sorry, they were right and I was wrong, but I never even really validated that. And I don't. If I learned anything from psychology, it's that I never trust my own memory on these things unless you're like writing things down, because you'll always remember like wins or correct guesses more than you will incorrect guesses. So that's, for me personally, I'm not saying anybody else, but that's why I tried to cut back on that behavior for myself, because I was really worried that I'm going to get into a world. I always get worried that I'm going to be in a world where I'm
That's weird. I feel like I remember when I'm like really wrong more.
bullshitting myself constantly, and then I've somehow inhibited my ability to recognize that. That's really scary to me.
Yeah, I would say I would have the similar experience. Like I'm highly, highly intuitive.
I think I'm not that super excited about being right, but when I'm like super wrong, that bothers me a lot.
Always right when I like about what's internally going on for people. But then yeah, when I'm wrong, I'm really wrong, and because I'm so often right and I'm very confident in it, it can do like a lot of harm to somebody if I convince them of a falsity about themselves.
Yeah, I've definitely.
Unironically, that's like the perfect way to construct, and I know I've done this before. It's the perfect way to construct a really convincing gaslighter, because if you're with a person, and I can tell this. I think Kyla said it, but also like you're Max. You have a very strong personality, right? Like you'll fill a room and run over anybody that's not like capable of standing up to it. And you are at the very least like decently intelligent, if not more so, and like decently intuitive emotionally. And that makes for a very dangerous combination of you being able to gaslight the fuck out of somebody if you truly are incorrect about what they feel. I know I've done this to people, and it's again one of the reasons why I try to be really careful about it, because it's like, fuck, if I'm wrong, like I totally mindfuck this chick, and I probably should have just shut the fuck up and listened to them, because like I could actually convince them that they're wrong about their own feelings, because like I know all the arguments and I know what to look out for and I know how to say things very convincingly, and I have a very like type A personality. So if they're not ready to stand up to it, they're just gonna end up going along with whatever, which is something I try to be avoidant of now.
Yeah, I try to mitigate that by making sure. This might annoy you, Kyla, but I think part of why I was so unhinged when I was screaming about you is to actually provide a grain of salt for what I'm saying. I think that I want to make it clear
That he's unhinged.
if I'm feeling boiling rage when somebody asks me about your therapy ethics, and I instead, in a very level-headed and calm manner, say, like, well, I think that she is blah, 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 and I think that her ethics are terrible and blah, blah, blah. I feel like there's something wrong with me not disclosing that I am full of boiling rage. And so, while you may think that my explosive, hyperbolic expression of that was unfair to you, I think in another way I am trying to acknowledge my own emotional response, so that people know I'm having it, because I think it undermines what I'm saying, obviously, if I'm screaming about it. And the same thing with Dr. K. I keep talking about how he reminds me of my father, and how all these like triggering things about it, because I don't want. I am also haunted by the possibility that I will be projecting but convince everybody that I'm not by concealing it. So I try to be really emotional when I'm talking about how I think other people are feeling, so that anybody listening knows my emotional state when I'm making the read.
Yeah. Have you ever, so one thought I've also had about mind reading, that I've had to at least learn, is that even if you're right, I've noticed sometimes that if you tell people what you've mind read about them, even if you're fucking completely accurate, it actually
They'll
like
be
takes,
invested in fighting that read.
well, actually I was going to say it takes away, like say they even accept it wholeheartedly, it might actually like take away their ability to like grow on their own 2 feet and like integrate that self-realization as like deeply and as like well as they potentially need to.
Maybe, but if you're the one who has to bring it up, then I don't know if they're getting there on their own anyway. Why? Why is Mr. Girl trying to manipulate Destiny here?
I think of this as me being somebody's emotional trash can. This is like a concept that I talk about a lot with Shaylin, where when you point something out to somebody who's not ready to hear it, they can react by not needing to think about it because you're thinking about it for them, or you're expressing it for them. I feel like this happens a lot with, like, if you have a friend who's in an abusive relationship and you say, you're your boyfriend or
Bro,
girlfriend is like terrible.
why?
Why don't you break up with them? They get to then take the position of just feeling like defensive and like they love the person, and then suddenly you're the person who's realized they're in an abusive relationship and they no longer have to, and then you're just kind of carrying that knowledge for them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so-
Totally.
Wait, no, I'll answer your question, but answer mine first. You come in here a lot and you say stuff that's just like, that just like leads like that, and I genuinely want to know why you think that.
So I also think that's another pitfall is if you're right about your read about somebody's feelings and you tell them, even if you're right, and even if they think you're right, if they're not ready to hear it, you can just be, you could just be the
Just
person, the
detrimental
thing
to
that
bring it
holds
up,
all the
right?
bad thoughts they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of like the hero when like people need to be their own like eternal hero to some degree, right?
Yeah, and then they get rid of you also
So
eventually.
I think a large portion of my frustration is I was pretty sure that you were highly intuitive and like a pretty good read. And so it
Ouch.
felt really frustrating to me to see you read me so poorly. And it felt really off because generally I feel like you probably would have a good read. And so it felt like everything that I had like come to value in you and your art kind of felt like a lie because it was like, well, if he's so like so off about this, where does this end?
You just don't want to answer? You just want to throw that out there, like leave it hanging? This girl's trying to get Destiny to trust him. Max is faking all this to get him to trust him. The conversation is cringy. Okay. You're just sort of stating it over again. Like, why do you think that? I'm curious as to what the reason for that is. Because it seems to me like everything that Mr. Girl's done up to this point in interacting with Destiny has been kind of like all sort of going in the same direction. That he has a lot of respect for Destiny, that he really likes them, and he really values friendship and all that shit. So I have a hard time understanding why you would have that read of the situation instead of like just thinking that it's like kind of face value. Everything is being said just sort of is how it's being presented. What did he say or do that makes you come to that conclusion? I'm like legitimately curious. And no, I'm not in an open relationship. I'm in a polyamorous relationship. Even though I really don't feel like I got an answer, give you A for effort. I'll give you a minute to answer though. Huh. I didn't I know I wasn't as talky towards the end of this because I just I'm pretty invested in trying to hear what they had to say. I really liked the like the honest discourse between them at the end there. Mr. Girl has never exhibited this type of emotion or nothing close ever since. He just want to suck up to a big streamer. Nobody has ever done anything for him the way that Destiny did by elevating him and giving him a career like that before either. So I would say that like an unprecedented thing can cause an unprecedented response. Yeah, that's what I think. Do you think that's not a good reason? Like that's not a good way to evaluate that? Curious. Because I feel like really confident in that too. Well, at any rate, I would get close to the 3 hour mark here. My back hurts. That's gonna be the end of this one. The next, if so I'm gonna stream tomorrow. The part 1 of this, though, I really wish she had labeled them part 1 and part 2. No, because Stardust platform next first. Matches through it. What Stardust did not result in the same kind of thing as what Destiny did for Mr. Girl, and like by his own admission, like Mr. Girl has said many times, like, you gave me a career. I guess this is the way that I think is helpful to look at it. Is that is there anything that happened? Is there any reason to think that Mr. Girl doesn't think that Destiny gave him a career? And if that is what he thought, would his actions during this conversation align with that thought? It seems to me like it would. You're offering an alternative to that, which can on its face also be true, but I would need to see some other reason to think that. Okay, you can call it cope, but you're not actually like arguing against what I'm saying. So yeah, tomorrow, probably gonna do that other one, but I might have something else. Yeah, I didn't say it's because they're friends. I said it's because Destiny gave him a career. I don't know why that's your response to that. That doesn't make any sense. Taking heat doesn't matter either. I said it's because Destiny gave him a career. Like I said, that's something unprecedented. No, you're not giving me a counter to what I said. You're giving me examples of things that aren't what I said. Mr. Girl's view, Destiny gave him a career. He's said as much plenty of times. All right, yep, I'll be back on tomorrow. Probably not as late, but I don't know. Maybe it just depends on when I go to bed. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking the stream. As the resident Destiny stan, I don't think Mr. Girl's faking anything. Mr. Girl says that to suck up to Destiny. Okay, that's fine. I have no reason to think that you're saying that anything. Wait, you want? Okay. I guess I'll talk to you for a minute and then I'll dip. I have told you before that if you're gonna make claims like that, then you should get into Discord. If you're volunteering, by all means. Are you in the Discord? I think you're in the Discord. If you have an NAVC, I'll pull you in. You won't see me in the VC because I'm in my private channel, but I'll yank you in. Just in case you're not. If you're not in the Discord, here you go. Tomorrow? Sure. We can do it tomorrow. Okay, are you in the Discord already? If not, then join so that way I can tag you. I don't want to be like balls deep in the middle of like something interesting in the stream and then be like, oh shit, you're here. Try to line it up. I'll just try to get a feel for the time. I'll hit you up tomorrow. Sorry, I keep catching you right as you're dipping. Have a good night. It's okay, Bob. I appreciate you stopping by. I probably would have went a little bit longer. Just my back's sore and shit. And I don't know how much longer my wife's going to be up, but I need to just start sooner. I just get caught up in shit during the daytime. I guess that wouldn't help you, though, either, would it? All right. Well, at the very least, there's always the VOD. And if you watch those, I still absolutely appreciate it. All right, have a good night, guys, and Rao. I will talk to you tomorrow.